Hello, hello. Good morning, good morning. Oh, what a morning. What a morning. Um uh okay, do I get to do I start off on Dothraki? Do I start off on some pre chats? Let's start on Dothraki. So, um the so a lot of people uh I mean, I guess if you read the Barristan sample chapters, there are some Dothraki that appear in that chapter that are kind of small and random, and a lot of people don't realize how important they are. But those Dothraki are very much like, say, the tapestries of Ice and Fire. Yeah, when I talk about the tapestries, I mean like there are these tapestries that appear in a Game of Thrones, and then they kind of reappear in A Feast for Crows, and then they're mentioned in The Winds of Winter. They're this little background thing that they get taken off the walls, and then they get put into storage, and then Littlefinger asks for these tapestries, and then and then Cersei sends them, and then Littlefinger hangs them on the wall, and you're like, why is this tiny little element repeating itself over the course of many many books? Um, is what the fuck is George like building up to? And so the same kind of thing is going on with these Dothraki. And it's a fun little story, actually, when you go back and you think about them, because it's something that no one ever talks about them. There, you'll. I don't think you're gonna find any like Reddit threads on them or any videos, or they're certainly not in the show. But when if you go back to the original Game of Thrones, when Khal Drogo dies, all of the Dothraki, 40,000 of them, like split off and start following the new cows. And all of the strong people follow them. And there is a handful of Dothraki. In a Game of Thrones, they describe them as fewer than 100, who are left behind because they are the most worthless people to the Dothraki. They are old men. They are very young children. They are nursing mothers. They're the sick, the injured, the deformed. Um, they're the only ones that stay with Dany, besides like her blood riders of Ago, Rakaro, and Jogo. And so she's got these, I don't want to. I don't mean that disabled people or mothers or children or old people are worthless, but to the Dothraki, and actually even to Dany herself, they kind of describe them as not being of any worth. But they're the only ones that stay behind and with Dany. These this less than 100, and this less than 100, these sickly non-fighter Dothraki follow Dany all the way through the Red Waste. These poor things, these old men, these children, these nursing mothers, um, these injured and deformed, and they make it to Karth. And then when she is in Karth, they just live with her, and then they all get on ships, surviving the poison water, and they like sail all the way to Slaver's Bay. Impressive group, really, when you think about like out of 40,000 Dothraki, these were seen as like the most worthless 100. And like what they go through, this group. They get to Slaver's Bay, and Dany in A Storm of Swords talks about them being rather useless. And she's just like, what do I do with these people? And so she is able to find, she describes 30 odd that can at least sit a horse. And she doesn't think they can be fighters, but she thinks they can be scouts. So she gets I imagine these are like, if these are like young boys, like 10 years old, and like old men, like 60 and older. Like, she finds 30 odd that are at least like horse rider enough to be scouts. And we never really hear of what happens to like the other 40 some, which I imagine those are the nursing mothers and the crippled and whatever. But the so she uses them as scouts in a Storm of Swords. We don't hear much about them. And then all through Dance with Dragons, we don't hear about them. And then Dany disappears. She flies off. And so at this point, Jogo is a hostage because he was given up as a hostage when she opened the fighting pits. So Aggo and Ricardo need to go into the Dothraki Sea and rescue Dany. So they look at their group of 30 odd like old men and young boys, and they pick the best 10 each. So they pick 20. And they're so bad that they're like, you know what, Eerie and Jeekwe, you need to come with us too, because you're actually better riders and better, like more worthwhile than like who's left behind. So when they said 10 picked men, I'm not sure if that includes Eerie and Jeekwe or not. Maybe it's 9 plus Eerie and Jeekwe. Maybe it's 10 plus Eerie and Jeekwe. But nonetheless, they disappear into the Dothraki Sea, leaving behind the worth, like, of the 40,000, I think it was 83 that they actually gives the number in a Sword of Swords. It's 83, and then she picks 30 odd as her new Khalasar, and then they take the best 20 of that, and they go off into the Dothraki Sea. So we're left with Romo, who is a Jaqaran, and Romo the Jaqaran, he's an old man who just goes around killing disabled like and injured people on the battlefield. He's left behind. And he has, Barristan describes it as 20 men left over. And I don't, the math doesn't really add up, you know, because it's like 30 odd and then you minus 20 to go off in the Dothraki Sea. So how did Romo get 20? Does he go back to that other group of 40 some and cobble together like another 3 or 4 people? Whatever the case, he has 20. And you got to think about like how much, like in battle, how these, like, this group does not have any value. They should not be, they have no right being in any battle. And like the fact that it's like super old men and children, the fact that Barristan is bringing them into battle is ridiculous. Cause like now, like, cause you got to remember like the 10-year-olds that Aggo and Ricardo think are good enough to take in the Dothraki Sea are gone. So it's like 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds. And like the old men who are like healthy enough, like the 60-year-olds, like Aggo and Ricardo have taken them. So now you've got like, you know, like guys pushing 70, like guys that can barely like ride a horse, and like children are the 20 of Romos, and they're going into battle. And so you may think that like, okay, these 20 people are like these 10 children and 10 old men, like who knows, they'll just die in battle, or they're just 20 more soldiers that are going to be there. But it's a little bit different than that, in that Romo and those Dothraki are honor bound to rescue Jogo. And we're told like Barristan thinks about this, but he doesn't really connect the dots that in their culture, like there are no captives. They need to get Jogo. However, Barristan has already sent Archon Drink to go rescue the hostages. For the price of Pentos, he's told them to go to the Windblown and give them this offer, and for the hostages and to switch sides. So Romo and his worthless Dothraki, the Castoffs, are going to get Jogo. But Barristan has already like ordered Archon Drink to get Jogo. I mean, and then we read the Tyrion sample chapter, and Tyrion has convinced the Second Sons that they need to rescue the hostages as well. And so now we have 3 different groups of people all descending upon the hostages. Dario, Jogo, and Hero. So of course, like comedy is going to ensue, but it's this like, there's going to be this moment where Tyrion or is like trying to rescue somebody with the Second Sons, and a bunch of Dothraki children and old men are going to be pouring in, not knowing that the Second Sons have switched sides, and not knowing that the Windblown have switched sides, right? Because it's not like Barristan told Rollo this, right? And they're going to try to kill and rescue Jogo from like either Arch and Drink or from like Tyrion. And they're like, Tyrion is going to get attacked by a bunch of like old, like Dothraki old men and children who have been through fucking hell. Like, who have been through everything. Like these poor, like Jesus, like they like, I'm just thinking about this like 8-year-old Dothraki kid who's like crossed the wet waste, made it to Karth, made it all the way on, like gotten on a ship, gone to Slaver's Bay, become a scout, and then is left behind, like must feel like super bitter that he's not considered good enough to go into the Dothraki Sea. And then he's like, I've got to save Jogo. And then he goes into battle and he like escapes away from Barristan to go rescue Jogo, and then comes across the Second Sons, stealing Jogo. Like, the craziness that's going to happen from these like completely forgotten about characters that no one ever talks about. No one ever talks about the Castoff Dothraki characters. But, we think about like how important Jogo and how important Dario. I mean, Hero is there too. I don't know. We don't know much about Hero, but how important these characters are, and like these little Dothraki who are like forgotten. But after all these books, George R. Martin is gonna bring him back and do something fun with them. And so it's one of those like fun things that like makes me love Ice and Fire, when some little piece that's been there the whole time is gonna come back. And that's the thing that's gonna come back. And it's gonna be pretty fun. But it's just one of those things that like nobody really talks about him, and I just thought it was like something to bring up. For people to enjoy. Okay. Let's see here. Real quick, getting to super chats. Worst death in A Song of Ice and Fire, Ralph Kenning dying of poison arrow. Also, have you seen A Knight's Tale? That's the vibe I'd like for Duncan Egg with added Game of Thrones grittiness. I don't think Ralph Kenning is the worst. I would actually say that all the other Ironborn have much worse deaths because they're brought out. Ralph Kenning at least just dies. The rest of them are brought out and then flayed, and that's a much worse death. So I'd say like all the other Ironborn have a much worse death than Ralph Kenning. But yeah, those are some pretty bad deaths. I mean, when you think of bad deaths, whatever prince lay 3 days dying is a pretty horrible death. To die of burns for over 3 days. All the people being flayed are some horrible deaths. The Mountain dies a pretty horrible death. I mean, he's just screaming for days and days and days if he's dead. I'm trying to think of like any others like that are just like the ways I would not want to go. And I would not want to be burned. I would not want to like, have agony for days and days and days like that. So that's probably the worst deaths I would think about would be the other Ironborn, or the people burned that die slow deaths. The Astapori, I think a lot of the Astapori refugees that are like dying in the camps have pretty horrible deaths. A lot of the fate of the Astapori, the way the people, some of the women were raped, and the Green Grace and things like that. A lot of disease. Strange is a lot of these like minor characters have much worse deaths than like the people we know. But yeah, we wouldn't really wouldn't want that. A number of kings in the War of the Five Kings never really changed. Aegon replaced Renly. Jon is sort of standing for Robb, soon to be replaced by Rickon. I'm trying to think. So I know there's talk, like there's some maester that says that there was never five kings, there was never four, but because of the declaration, but there were five kings. I mean, that maester's wrong. At the start of a Storm of Swords, like Balon has is at least amongst the Ironborn has declared himself king, while Renly has declared himself king, while Stannis has declared himself king, while Robb has declared himself king, while Joffrey is king. Um, and so I guess the question is does the number of kings really like drop? Um, and so the minute Balon dies, Euron, of course, like replaces Balon, so you're not having a decrease in the number of kings. And when Joffrey dies, obviously you've got Tommen replacing him. And so then the question is like when Robb dies, is he replaced by his new king? So this is the idea that if Jon were the heir, which I disagree that Jon is Robb's heir, but if Jon were the heir, is he the king? And then like Stannis and Renly, obviously, like Renly dies and is not replaced with an heir because Stannis is the heir of Renly. And so, but at this point in the story is Aegon being added as a king. So once he lands, our kings are Tommen, Aegon, Euron, Robb's heir, and Stannis, right? This is the idea that there's still five. I suppose. I mean, I think it's pushing it about Robb's heir because again, like Robb's heir could be a woman, so you've got a queen, but also the person doesn't know they're king yet, so they're not really like declaring anything or making a declaration. Now, Mance Rayder is king beyond the wall, and he goes south of the wall in A Dance with Dragons. So you could say that like another king is there. So we've got like Mance, king beyond the wall, Aegon, Stannis, Euron, Tommen, and so then we have five kings. We literally do have five kings like in the story, right? Stannis, Mance, Euron, Tommen, and Aegon. So we still currently do have five kings in the story, but I would argue that like Mance Rayder is the king that's in there too, rather than like Robb's heir. Though I see your argument there. It's not bad, but Preston, love the content. It is Lady Penrose who loses all but one son at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, Aelena Targaryen. It kind of works out timeline wise. This is one of those situations where it's like I feel like George was like throwing around names and he didn't figure this out, and there's just like it's so for people that don't know, this is pretty obscure. Lady Penrose is a character mentioned in the Mystery Knight as the who has all of her sons in the Blackfire Rebellion at the Battle of Redgrass Field, and they're all killed by Fireball, Quentin Ball, except for one, and he supposedly doesn't kill the last one because Quentin Ball is being a gentleman, And we're told this story by Flowers, the Ball's bastard. And so, logically speaking, like he wouldn't really have a reason to call the person Lady Penrose if it were Aelena Targaryen. So Aelena Targaryen does marry a Lord Penrose, so she would essentially become Lady Penrose. But so the question is like, timeline wise, does it make more sense for Aelena to be Lady Penrose, or for her to have married that last son? And I don't know if either makes sense timeline wise realistically, because like we know that like Aelena marries Lord Penrose during the reign. She's ordered to marry him by Daron. So and Daron becomes like becomes king like 10 years before the Blackfire Rebellion, or before the Blackfire Rebellion starts. So like for Elena to be Lady Penrose, her kids would be like 10, 11 years old or younger. And so in that sense, it doesn't really make sense for her to be Lady Penrose. Now, for her to have married the final son, that makes a little more sense if the son is actually Ronald Penrose. But the problem with that is like, why was Elena Targaryen sitting around for like a decade unmarried and then married to Ronald? Because she marries Viserys Plum, and then like Viserys Plum dies on their wedding night, and this is like during the reign of Aegon. And so it makes, why would she be sitting around for a good decade waiting until this last son? Or did they send their master of coin, Ronald Penrose, to the Battle of the Redgrass Field to like fight, which is also really weird because he's the acting master of coin. So it's like, it's just one of these things that like George clearly like didn't think it through, because like neither one makes sense. That like the kids would be too young for it to be Elena, but at the same time, like for that last son to be Ronald doesn't really make sense either. So it's just one of those things that like George didn't think about, because timeline wise, just neither one makes sense. But I think it more makes sense, I guess, if Ronald was somehow master of coin and then was sent to the battle and was not killed in battle or something. But because I just couldn't see, I couldn't see like Flowers like not saying it was Elena, but two, like it's just like and the kids would be too young. But otherwise, like it's just weird. George, I mean, it honestly, like George just fucked up. Like the timeline doesn't make sense. It's silly. But I guess Ronald was sent as Master of Coin to go do battle, and then happened to be spared by Fireball. Anyway, will Dany become the leader of all the Dothraki? I think so. I think we have a lot of like evidence that Dany is going to become the leader of all the Dothraki. I think the primary evidence, is that Dany has a dream at the House of the Undying that shows the Dosh Khaleen all kneeling to her in front of the Mother of Mountains. The Mother of Mountains is the mountain range and like just outside of Vaes Dothrak. So like we know that that she becomes the leader of the Dosh Khaleen because they all kneel to her, at least if that vision is correct. And it's kind of established in a Game of Thrones that the Khals all follow the Dosh Khaleen. And so she's like essentially like worming her way into leading them all by becoming the leader of the Dosh Khaleen. So she leads the Dosh Khaleen, and then the Dosh Khaleen like rule the Khals. It's very Dune, like like how George has set up the Dothraki culture, like the Dosh Khaleen are the Bene Gesserit, and they're the real puppet masters behind everything. And these other powers, like they send people prophecies and stuff, and these other people, like they all are not really in control. The show made it a little more realistic. She arrives and they're like, no, we don't really have any power. That's a bunch of bullshit. We have no power. The Khals rule. So the show went very realistic in that sense. But the show also had Dany becoming the leader of the Dothraki. So, in that sense, I think it's pretty established that she's going to become the leader of all the Dothraki. and grab them. I think certainly the way the fanfic, I put it in the fanfic that way, but I just think that's just the logical way things are going to go. Also, when we look at just like, Dany needs an army. What army is she going to have? The Unsullied aren't really quite big enough. She's got about 8,000 of them. Maybe she could have some more zealots from like Volantis, but you know, she really needs like a huge army, and the Dothraki are it. So um, totally not an easy question. Why did the Roman Empire collapse? We're talking about Western Rome. Well, I mean, I guess Eastern Rome eventually collapsed. I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of time like focusing on the internal politics of Rome. I'm more of like think of things as an economist. Like I felt they kind of were relying on outward expansion to support their system. And once you kind of get to the point where you can't really do outward expansion anymore, they their economic system kind of like falls apart. So I think it's just a kind of a bit of that. I mean, you've got plus you've got like the strength of other powers coming in and stuff like that. And some people would also argue that like Rome's power, a lot of it's nominal. Like when some king declares that he's part of the Roman Empire, but he's not really part of the Roman Empire, but you get to say he's part of the Roman Empire. Like, how is that any different than like the next king claims that he's not part of the Roman Empire? So they love to show these like maps of the Roman Empire at their greatest extent, with them like with Trajan like having control over these areas, but he didn't really have any control over those areas and stuff like that. And I don't know. It's I would say that you've got some combination of economics and internal politics, but also the illusion that Rome was ever that powerful to begin with, versus like, it being a nominal statement versus it no longer being a nominal statement. Like obviously like the city of Rome definitely like went downhill, having millions of people and then having like 100,000 people, like that definitely happened. But and like the capital being moved and administratively and things to Constantinople and stuff. So I think you've got like combinations of different things. But one, I don't think Rome was ever as powerful as people like to claim it was. And then I think it kind of relied on expansion and resources, and eventually get to the point where you can't expand any further. Some historian will probably tell me I'm full of shit, which they're probably right. My like knowledge on Rome is mainly like first century. Like I know more about than I know about like fourth or fifth century. So hey Preston, my favorite series of yours is Cersei and Taina. Have you had further thoughts on Reacher House's scheming a Tyrell master plan? Not really. I've gone for that series. I went through the Reach quite a bit, because forever people, kind of ask these questions of like, who are the friends in the Reach and stuff like that, and what kind of Reacher questions do we know about? And the answer is actually we don't know. Like George just hasn't given us any information. And so you can kind of make some guesses based on like who was a Blackfire and what houses are upset with the crown and things like that. You can maybe make some analysis based on like Tarly versus Florent versus Hightower and these kind of big powers. You can maybe talk about like Hightower vassals and whether they're happy with them or not. But in the end, there's just not enough written on them to really make anything too definitive. I did my like the Cersei versus Taina, the Cersei and Taina video. Cersei versus Taina is probably the best. The like that I could do on that. Um, but when you examine things like it, you don't like when you examine other houses and other areas, like it's not like you find ironborn reacher marriages like you do with Westerland, like ironborn Westerland like marriages. You don't find like the same connections. So when in the show you see Cersei teaming up with Euron, and then I look at the houses and the appendices and I go, oh, some of that all makes sense. I go, okay, yeah, I guess a Lannister Ironborn like team up does seem like something that could happen based on like what I'm seeing here. But you don't see that with the Tyrells. The Tyrells, like, I think the best you can do is kind of look at some of the rebellions with like, you know, Peak and Merryweather and the Blackfires and stuff like that. You know, like trying to figure out House Redwine and House Hightower, but like those have largely been left a mystery. So I do not, in any sense, believe that there's a Tyrell master plan. Tyrell master plan was a really bad theory that because it was so old, it got a lot of people like talking about it and reading about it. But they're like the Grand Tyrell conspiracy and the Tyrell master plan. Like no, there's no Tyrell. There's no Tyrell master plan. It just like no, and I think like the biggest like evidence of that is the fact that like Marjorie's arrested, like this just and is like probably gonna die, like it just didn't happen, or you know, um, maybe Loras is still alive and things like that, but there's no, I don't believe that there's any Tyrell master plan. I think that they are they were earnestly trying to weasel their way into power through a Lannister alliance, and it's not working out. And they're um, uh, overextending themselves, creating enemies within the Reach. Just taking more than they needed to, while others, did not. And so, I think they'll have their fall from grace as the other Reacher lords will try to usurp them. Um, have I seen Better Call Saul and did I like it? I have not seen Better Call Saul. This is more of a Carmine question. Carmine loves Better Call Saul. Phil the Issues guy loves Better Call Saul. They are like religious fans of it. I watched Breaking Bad. I liked Breaking Bad a lot. I watched the Breaking Bad movie, but with Jesse. But I haven't seen Better Call Saul except for the first episode. And so I don't know. It just people tell me it's better. It's even better than Breaking Bad. So, oh. um. Preston, some authors are very proactive at interacting with content creators and their work. Huh. Does this appeal to you or does it take away the fun? Huh. No, I mean, I think interacting with other people is very fun. Um, I like it a lot, and like collaborative work, like you come up with all these great ideas. The downside of it is it's such a time suck. Like sometimes you just want to get something done, and if you spend like all of your time shooting the shit, um, you can't get anything done. And this goes for your work. This goes for like any working life. Like you're at work and people are like, "Oh, I've got another meeting," and you're like, "Oh my god, can I just get my fucking work done? Or I have to go to another goddamn meeting." And it's like meetings, like and collaboration with people, like it is incredibly valuable. Um, People have great ideas, but it's also like it's also just hard. It's hard to find the time, and so like for someone like me who's just busy all the time, I don't I do collaborate with people, but like there's only so much time you can sit and like talk to people. um Carmine spends all day like chatting with people, finding other YouTube creators, like talking to them about like their lives. He he um he's made a lot of friends online, and like he has all sorts of crazy stories. And it's like, in some ways I'm very jealous that he like has all these like random connections and random stories about all these different content creators. But I just don't have the time. I don't have the time for any of that. And so yeah, that's all it is. I think there's value to it. There's a lot of value to it. Brainstorming and two minds, three minds, four minds is so much better than one. There's so many things that you forget and so many ideas that to bounce off people. But it's like whether you have the time to do it. It's very time intensive to do it. Um, um, Dothraki are inspired by American Indian tribes and Mongols. Thoughts on Mongols in the U.S.? What should be done about Native American appropriations? Um, I don't know. I don't know. Like too many thoughts on the Mongols. I mean, I've been to Mongolia. I spent some time in Mongolia. Are we talking about like the Mongol Empire under like Genghis Khan? Um, I mean, it's interesting and fascinating stuff because it's a part of like history that Westerners don't think about too much. Like when they to think like the Turks in Turkey are the same people as the Mongols in Mongolia, and that we're talking about Turkic people. Like last people were laughing at me for my pronunciation for of Cenk Uyghur, the from the Young Turks, but like Uyghur being like the same term as like the Turkic people in China, like so it's fascinating stuff like Central Asia, and I've always found it very I find it very exotic to me because like I call it where East meets East. Like I am very fascinated with like where Middle Eastern, Central Asian Muslim culture like intersected with Buddhist, Chinese, um, Eastern culture. I always thought that it was like a very fascinating thing, and I've always wanted to go to Kashgar, and I've always wanted to go to East Turkestan and um, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. Like I've wanted to do this for a long time, and every time I try to go, like something happens. Something happens, and it's hard. I once when I was living in Egypt, I bought a ticket to Kazakhstan. I was gonna go there on vacation, and then like for some reason the Kazakh embassy like shut down, and I think it was the coup that week. I had to get evacuated from the coup for the coup, and I wasn't able to go, which is too bad. And then I don't know, just all sorts of thoughts. I mean, I've had a lot of friends like who've lived in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. I've always wanted to spend time there, but it's just like it's so hard to get there, other side of the world. Um, so I do have a great fascination, like an exotic, like they are very exotic to me, and I want to go there. Um, but I've just never been able to do it, and so I don't really have too many thoughts. I've been to Mongolia. It was a great time, um, but as for like American Indian appropriations, I think didn't we offer? I think the United States might have offered American Indian appropriations, and they were like rejected like for being insufficient or something like that. Like obviously the United States could do a lot more with regards to uh, all of its uh, abused minorities and American Indians. Like they have it pretty rough. They have it pretty rough in that there's very high poverty rates and very high alcoholism rate, and um, that whatever the government does what they can with whatever scholarships and such, but it's hard. But but all you can do is like offer more money into more programs. Um, but yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, more money and more programs is all I can say. I mean, and that goes for anybody that has such high levels of poverty and lack of opportunity. Um, exactly how many people are left to fight the others in both the books and the show? There are many battles and deaths. How many to fight the others? Trying to think about that. Let's see. So what the Weeper might have around 80,000 people. The rest of the North altogether, there's like 10,000 people about to fight at the Battle of Ice, but you could claim that maybe Manderley is hiding like another 5,000 people or something. Not everybody the Weeper has is ready to fight. Um, you can kind of say the Riverlands probably don't have many people left, only maybe a few thousand. They've been through the most fights. The Westerlands, they probably have a few more, but maybe 10,000. The Vale, you could probably say that there's 20,000 people or something. The Reach probably has a lot more, 20,000. Dorne has like 10,000. And so, you're talking like a couple 100,000 people altogether, you could probably say, are like able to fight the others. But the problem is that like the others, they might take over the Weeper's army or whatever and grow or whatever. I don't know if the point of all of the wildlings and the Weeper's army is just to get turned, or if they're going to do something else. But it's not. You don't think like there's probably many millions of people, but then like who is actually a fighter? And so it seems like maybe a couple 100,000. And then you've got, maybe what we got in another Dothraki screamers and some zealots from Volantis and stuff like that. Maybe another 50,000 or something. But it's not going to be more than 300,000. It's probably somewhere between 200 and 300,000 people could be pulled together for this battle. Because you start pulling everybody. That actually came out. I wonder if you just pull more. At what point can you just pull women and children? Is Dany's A Dance with Dragons story bad? Seems very introspective. Let's see here. I like the Dany story and A Dance with Dragons more than most people. Most people really hate the Dany story. They think she kind of sits around and does nothing. They give the Jon story more of a pass, even though the Jon story Jon does very little in his story. But they, for some reason, give Jon a pass, but they give Dany like not so much. Like Dany gets trashed a little more. But I would say that there's some. I'm not saying it's the greatest story, but there are a lot of like small little Easter eggs in the Dany story that you can go back and search. That do kind of make it fun. Like when you start examining like who's killed and who's like coming to her and wanting restitution, like her problems in the first few chapters, like they do actually kind of relate to each other, and you can figure out various stuff that's going on in the background. But so there are a lot of like little Easter eggs here and there, but I will say that like some parts are not necessary or maybe are set up. Like I think Dany 3, which is actually like I think the first Dany chapter that George wrote, which is about Zaro coming. That I think is a kind of a waste of time. Like I don't know, like the Carthene and their ships like don't seem very important, and the Carthene Camel Corps doesn't seem very important. But like Karth has been brought in, and Zaro has been brought in almost just to remind us that Zaro is a character, so that maybe he's going to come back again. So I think Dany 3 is kind of a waste. But when you think like all the little stuff about establishing like the Green Grace and and establishing that the dragons need to be locked up because they're eating children. Like that all builds up, and Hizdar is an interesting character, and I do enjoy like Hizdar arriving with the fighting pit like people and talking about the opening of the fighting pits. And then I guess I don't know if people really like the whole sex time with Dario and stuff like that, and then the refugees showing up, and it just seems like the problems are piling on, and then like Danny goes. I don't think it's the strongest story, but I don't think it's horrible. Like I think it Danny beats out I think Danny beats out Tyrion, and I think Danny beats John's stories in A Dance with Dragons. I enjoy her story more than John's story or Tyrion's story, but I don't think she's as strong as all the other chapters that you kind of read. Like I don't think she's as strong as Quentin or Victarion or Theon or Asha. Or even when Barristan takes over, I think the Barristan chapters are a little stronger. But they're not bad. I would just say that Danny is kind of in the middle. I would say, for dance. Um, what Patreon level gets all vids with you and Carmine? I'm not the best with my Patreon. My Patreon is more like a tip jar, but like I do throw on every once in a while videos that Carmine and I do that like appear on his Patreon. There's very little there, but there is some extra stuff on my Patreon, but it's mainly just a tip jar. It's but I don't have there's no difference in the levels with me. Like you just if you're a patron, like you get access to everything that's there. So we've got some things like we did some commentary for House of the Dragon. Every once in a while we do some random discussions, stuff like that. But it's I'm not saying my Patreon is fantastic, because it's not. You know, it's just there as like a tip jar, and I do try to put something on like about once a month or something, but it's not fantastic, and there's no difference in the levels for me or anything like that. It's just you're on. Yeah. Hello, how goes it?
Did someone mention money? I smelled money. Real quick, uh, I'm not gonna. I'll come back on later. I just came on to say any level to Griffin's question. But I came here to tell you.
Mm.
I came here to alert you, babe. Wake up! New cancel culture target has just dropped.
Who's the new cancel culture target?
George R. R. Martin.
What did he do this time?
I just sent it to you on Facebook. It's the stupidest thing. Um, I didn't block out these people's username, so I don't know if you want to put them on. But their Twitters are public, so anyone can see them. But I love this one woman here goes. So it took George R. R. Martin tweeting an idiotic political statement, it wasn't, for people to realize was a disgusting person, but all the times his predatory behavior was just brought up and no one batted an eye. And I'm wondering, you're the George R. R. Martin expert. You're the George R. R. Martin professor. What has he done that was predatory? Did he like drug a couple of women with quaaludes or something? Like, what would he do?
I she must be talking about like him writing about bad people doing bad things.
So he didn't like pressure women into sex for movie roles. That's not what
Never,
happened.
never.
No. Oh, okay. Really? You sure?
Look, man. Like. All right, this is one of these things. Like here, I'm gonna like defend George to the end here. Okay,
Go ahead. I
like George, like he's a really left wing guy. He's never done anything bad in his personal life, like ever. The worst thing you can say that he's ever done is being slow writing a book. Okay, like give the guy a fucking break. Like he's lived an exemplary life. Okay, now influencing people and making them care and stuff like that. I don't. Now let's see if I can. So what? How can I get this the right size? There we go.
By the
I
way,
don't.
I just checked. The person who wrote the predatory thing, I just because I tweeted out at her. I'm like, please, oh please, tell me how he has predatory behavior. I really want to know. She deleted the post. So
So this thing on the
hmm,
left is the later stuff, and the thing on the right is the first stuff.
yeah. So
Okay.
basically, I guess George R. R. Martin felt like he
So
needed
you'd
to
you'd you'd
post
think the
something.
man who wrote A Song of Ice and Fire and the Danny's chapter in practice in the story of oppression and liberation would undoubtedly side with the oppressed instead of spewing this neutrality bullshit. There are no nations, there is only humanity, and if we don't come to understand that right soon, there will be no nations because there'll be no humanity. Is she claiming that he's not Palestinian enough? Or is she
I have
claiming that
no
he's not
idea.
Israeli enough on that?
I have no idea what runs through the minds of far left people who need to do mental gymnastics to make everyone a villain, but it's kind of what it is, right? This is kind of what it like George R. R. Martin, he's the guy. He's the guy we're going after now.
I mean, first of all, like when you start when you if you oh god. Okay, first of all, like if you're taking Israel Palestine situation, okay? Um Israel Palestine is a weird situation because you actually have on the Israeli side a largely secular um people and a rather like religious argument from the state going forward. And then you have with the Palestinians, you have a largely religious people, but then a rather large, like a secular argument from the government, which is at least Palestinian Authority. Let's not talk about Hamas, but let's talk about Palestinian Authority. So, um, because Palestinians have to represent both Muslims and Christians for the most part. So you got this interesting thing. So like when you say something like there are no nations, you're actually because like you're actually kind of leaning to the Palestinian side there because the Palestinian side is more like there's no nations, while Israel's side is like no, there needs to be an establishment of a Jewish state um, in this lands. Like so, like that's the whole point of Zionism is the establishment of a Jewish state. Um, while the Palestinian argument is more like like oh the Palestinian people need to have right of return and equal rights and stuff like that. So it's this very weird flip because you actually talk like like a lot of Israelis, most Israelis maybe are not even very religious, and like while most Palestinians are very religious, but it's there's a weird thing. So like when he says there's no nations, I read that as actually like yeah, he's pretending to be fence sitting, but you when you
Hmm.
say no nations, like you're saying like there shouldn't be like religious like or ethnic states. There should be no ethno states, you know? Um
Is that what he's saying?
no, I
I'll,
mean that's how I'm seeing it. When you say no
uh,
nations,
Man Band 20 goes, I think she's mad he's not supporting Israel. That's what you take it at? I think
I
she's mad he's not supporting Palestine hard enough. I don't know what these people are usually upset over.
yeah, I mean
Does anyone have enough
if
white
she's
guilt to
angry that he's
translate
not
this?
supporting Palestine enough, I think she's misinterpreting it. Um, I like when I see something being angry at this, it would be more. I would assume that she's angry that he's not being pro-Israel. But it's strange that, but the fact that she's talking about oppression and liberation, like I don't know. But so it took George tweeting an idiot's political statement. First of all, there's nothing idiotic about there are no nations. There's only humanity. Like that's like I don't understand. Like what? Like nation states do kind of suck. Like ethno states do kind of suck. Like that's um it's not that George doesn't understand how a hegemonic power enacts material violence. The slave owners of Marine burn all of the olive groves and feed the people much in the same way Israelis burn Palestinian olive groves. It sounds like at least Starlight in C form is angry that he's not being Palestinian enough. It's that American apologism seems to be seeping through. Yeah, the fact that she didn't like scream back. America loves to compromise. I think you're right that they seem to be angry at him for not being Palestinian sympathizing enough, but George definitely is Palestinian sympathizing. I mean, um, he's like, I don't know. They just misunderstand him, and they misunderstand the concept. Like, if you say there shouldn't be nations, that includes that there shouldn't be a Jewish state. Like, what are you saying? Like, it's actually pretty strong. Um, anyway, they're just being silly. They don't understand anything.
I
Uh
know. I just wanted to bring that up to you because I know you get like annoyed about that stuff. I'm gonna
yeah, I
bounce
mean,
for a bit. I'll be back on later. But right, real quick, you were correct, by the way. Yeah, I do talk to a lot of people. By the way, you and I kind of have our own business meetings, kind of, not really. Every now and
yeah.
then when we when I like call you or you call me,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
just talk about what's going down. Which, by the way, you can feel free to say I yenta way too much. I
No,
I,
no, no, no. They're all good. It's the that's how I hear about everything. It's just shooting the shit with Carmen every once in a while.
mhm.
But yeah, you do meet all these like interesting people that run interesting channels that I think is
True, true. By the way, for anybody who just heard him say that, most of them not Ice and Fire related, thank God. However, recently I did meet someone. I talked to you about it. Quinn, the GM. Every now
mm.
and then he'll be in the stream chat. I don't know if he's here now, but I spoke to him, and I'm like, Quinn, what does the GM mean? What does that stand for? And he goes, stands for Goat Master. I didn't know that was a thing. I always thought it meant like Game Master
I
or
thought it would be
Grand
Game
Maester.
Master. Yeah, because when
Game
playing
Master?
Dungeons
No,
and Dragons,
I
the
don't think he's a
GM or the
homosexual.
DM or what? Yeah, I always thought it was Game
Yeah, no.
Master.
No, it was Goat Master. I don't know why. I don't know why he's like, I don't know why people think that. It's Goat Master. So I
Like
think he lived on the
Abu
farm.
Lail. do you remember? Do you remember my story of Abu Lail?
Yes.
Okay.
But anyways, I'll be back on later. And hey, to remind you, did you want to offend every European with our conversation last night about how to hold a fork and spoon and knife?
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that later. So Carmine doesn't know how to use
Oh no! What do you mean?
a fork and
Me?
knife.
Yes, I
Um,
do.
you said you hold your knife with your left hand.
Yeah, why not? What's wrong with that? Like
Unless you're
what?
left-handed, that's
I am a
not
righty.
proper American etiquette.
It totally works for me. It totally 100% works for me just fine.
Yeah. So there's this entire different set of American etiquette from like European etiquette on how to eat. And it's weird because like Americans don't think about it very much, but like if you have dinner with a European, you know, it can sometimes be very shocking. Like you're just like, what's wrong here? And you're like, oh God, oh, they eat differently. Um, so the big thing is that like Americans, when we cut our meats, okay, we use our right hand with the knife and our left hand with the fork, okay, and then we cut. You set the knife down. You switch hands. You then eat with your right hand. A European, more efficiently, will cut and then eat with the left hand. Now, what I've found is that when you eat with a European, through life, they now know never put down the silverware. So there are times where they're just sitting there chewing and they've got like knife up, fork up, chewing, going, and you're just like, oh my God, are you ready to fucking kill someone? Like, set down your silverware and relax. Like, but it's like, ready to stab. And so,
By the way,
like,
I know you're not caught up on the stream chat. Everyone is basically saying they do the same thing I do, and everyone's like, switch hands. What the fuck? That's too much.
I know. So like, and other people like the European method is really weird because you're putting peas on the back of forks and stuff, and just like, but proper American etiquette is you set your knife down and you switch hands so that you eat slowly, and that all eating with Americans, all eating happens with your dominant hand, and like you know, but That's how you do it proper.
You're
According to
gonna have to
etiquette
show me
books.
sometime on camera, like you eating like something, like a banana or something, just so I can.
Fucking fine. I'll be right back. Hold on.
No, oh, you don't have to do that now. What have I done? What have I done? By the way, just so you guys know, we were talking last night. We were talking about a bunch of topics. We went from talking about Matthew Perry's death to eating with a fork and spoon and a knife. And I do this all the time. Conversations with me. For those of you who've talked to me privately, you know how it is. It just branches off into random shit all the time. So, Carmine eats bananas with knife and fork confirmed. Hey, bro, fuck you. By the way, whoever said I eat a pizza with a knife and fork, mods, ban that person immediately. Ew, get the fuck out of here. Who does this? Who is the
All right.
Neanderthal eating a pizza like that?
All right. Now I've got this is like a brownie. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So this is gonna be hard to. It's kind of okay. So let's see here. What can be seen here? Can we see how to eat like a proper civilized American? Which okay. So right hand knife,
Mm-hmm.
because when you set
Gotcha.
your table, your knife is on the right, spoon is on the outside, left is your napkin and fork. Fork is going to be on top of your napkin, stuff like this. So it's real. Gotta move my khanjar. Okay, so real simple. Eating a brownie here. Okay, you cut, you set down your knife, you switch hands, and you eat.
That is ridiculous. Just fucking just use the why do you gotta set it down? Just have both in your hand.
Well, this is what Europeans do. So European will cut, and the fork is upside down, and they'll eat like this. Now the problem is because their hands are just constantly in silverware. They're sitting there and they're talking to you, and they're like, and it's like they're ready to freaking stab you with their silverware because they never put their stuff down, and you're just like, oh my god, like relax, put yourself down. Now, if you're in the habit of switching your hands, you get to set things down, you get to talk, relax. This is like proper American etiquette. Obviously, don't eat with your mouth full if you're like. But you're saying, Carmine, that you understand, but you're just like, I guess I'll just cut with my non-dominant hand like this.
Yeah, I'm so you're like, yeah,
This is
why
ridiculous.
not? What do you mean? It's really
Because
simple. It's just get in
you're
there.
cutting with your left hand. And then you're
I'm dominant with my
flipping your
left
fork
hand.
over like this to eat. Like it's down first, and then it's down to hold, and then you flip it over.
Yeah, and they use the knife to like get it in there. Yeah, of course. Why not?
Because now I'm fumbling around with my left hand. Dude,
I love you. I love you.
it's just so much like when you have like the knife in your dominant hand, like it's just so much easier, and then you switch. And then your arm is down, you're civilized. You get to have a conversation. You can grab your drink, which is on your right side, things like this. And
Actually, my drink is usually on my left side. I use my left hand to. Yo, bro, what is happening? Come on.
you drink.
I just had
Your
dinner.
drink
I
is
just made a
always
pop.
above, like it's knife, spoon, drink above, napkin, and fork on the left side. Jesus, do they not have home ec? Did you not take home ec?
No, actually, I don't think my high school had home ec. Wait, no, they did. I just didn't take it as an elective.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
All right, I'll be back on later. See you
All right,
then.
man. Talk to you soon. Okay. I'm reading Bad Gays, a homosexual history that examines its relationship with power beyond transhistorical norms. Idea for Bravo story in parts. Oh, that's interesting. By the way, this weekend I went to Taipei's Pride Festival, Parade, um, which is a pretty big thing because, well, one, like, Taiwan is the only country in Asia that allows same sex marriage, and so it's a big tourist destination for uh, gay people in East Asia. And then it's also not during all the rest of the Pride parades because that's too hot for Taiwan, so they have like off season, and so it becomes like another destination on a different day. But yeah, went to Pride with the kids. It was loud and um, it was there was nothing too shocking, but it was very corporate. Like everybody, like different chip manufacturers were there with like rainbow flags and stuff and stuff like that. But it was nonetheless. Um, um, but yeah, I do. The interesting thing, I think, like the idea of being gay, like as an identity, is a fairly young concept. Like certainly people were sleeping with each other, like, but this idea of having like a community is kind of a young concept. So I don't know like 19th century on. So, but it'd be interesting to think about, like, because there's not too many. I mean, there's characters people suspect are gay, but there's not too much discussion of it in the story, really. Um, how likely that people in King's Landing prefer Cersei to Dany? Oh. Hmm. I mean, I don't think much anymore. I think they really did, like, Cersei's walk of shame really did shame her and make her like, because one thing is like people liked Cersei because she was so beautiful, but the idea is that once they saw like her her the effects of childbirth on her body and things like that, and saw her naked and stuff like that, that the allure of her was taken away, and that was the intention, to take away like the one piece of agency that Cersei had, which was her sexuality. But in fact, Cersei has another piece of agency. She has her intellect. So, and her scheming. So we're gonna see how she handles things going forward. The but yeah, I would think that they would prefer Dany just because Dany has dragons. Dany's a Targaryen. She's not sullied in the same sense, like publicly shamed like Cersei is. So I think Cersei has some work to do in winning people back. Um, will predestination versus free will be a theme in the last two books? Also, Roman soldiers converting to Christianity played a key role, according to uh, Edward Gibbons. According to the Gib, I imagine you're talking about Edward Gibbon. Edward Gibbon. Edward Gibbon is this British armchair historian whose ideas. This is back in the day where if you're the first to say something, everybody like believes you, and like. But he had some interesting revolutionary stuff, and like now everybody has to like talk about Gibbon's ideas constantly, even though like he was wrong about a lot of stuff and right about a lot of stuff, but he just kind of like, I don't know. um but there's because a lot of people talk about like Mithraism and what the Roman soldiers believed and stuff like this, and it being important. And it's true that like Roman soldiers, because the military kind of decided how many different rulers got to happen, because the big problem with Rome was that the generals could keep their spoils of war rather than surrendering them to the state. So the generals ended up massively powerful, which is why you had like military coups and stuff. And so like you kind of had to please your generals in order to keep going. So it's possible. But yeah, predestination and free will is like such a main theme of Ice and Fire. How can it not? Especially when you're talking about time travel and we're talking about existentialism. which is like such an important part of George R. R. Martin's like ideas about morality and stuff like that. Like, who gets to decide what's moral or not? Well, we do. We have the free will to create our own morality and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a major theme. It's a major theme. How can it not? I mean, especially when we're talking about Jamie and Brienne. What do you think of Randa? She's going to reveal a secret. I think Randa is one of the best characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. She is so cool. We're talking about Miranda Royce. Randa is one of my favorite characters. She's so great. She's so smart. She's so shrewd. I think she has figured out everything about Sansa. I think she has her own little scheme. You know, we wrote her that way for the fanfic and things like that. But I don't know if she's gonna. I think she's going to see what benefits her the most, if she's going to keep Sansa's secret or not. And we'll play. You know, she's playing the Game of Thrones, but she is a smart, shrewd character, and she's too good of a character to not continue on for either George or the fanfic. Hi, Preston. I'm Jesus Christ's younger brother, and I'm trying to take China back from the Manchu. Got any advice? So the Manchu take over China with the Qing dynasty. So we're pretty late. So Jesus Christ's little brother has like lived, what we're talking like 1600 years to get to the Qing dynasty, and he wants them to take back for the Manchus. I mean, I suppose you just do it the same way that Sun Yat-sen did, you know, and try to do a democratic revolution within, you know, or whatever. Or you can go straight to Mao and become a communist. But I think you'd be focusing on the same issues, and the same issues that resonated with China and the Manchus back then. Is that like, okay, so the Chinese had a serious wealth disparity with regards to like the ruling class and the landowners and the landlords and the common people. And you know, Sun Yat-sen focused on the fact that it was these foreigners. Really, they're the problem. It's just these foreign elites, and you kick them out, but it's like, and you just replace them with Chinese elites, and it's like, well, that's not really going to work, you know. And so you know, Mao is able to take power in a sense because, you know, these landlords have so much power, and it's straight up horrible. Like, it's straight up horrible, the rights that these landlords had over their subjects. Like, it's medieval. You know, when we talk about like lord's right to the first night and stuff like that, and how like that didn't really exist in Europe. Well, it kind of existed in like 19th century China and stuff like that. It was horrible stuff. It was horrible. The Confucian hierarchy and just wealth disparity and everything was really rough. So the only way you're taking control in China is to really have some sort of equality for people, some sort of granting more rights to the common man. And so, you do it like Sun Yat-sen and Mao Zedong did, where it's just, you promise more rights. You know, you promise to give them their land. Land distribution was the big thing that Mao used to take control. That, hey, you're, you know, that plot of land that you've been working, it's going to be yours. And so I think you do the same thing. You do the same thing. I mean, if it worked for them, we work for younger brother of Jesus Christ, you know. Hey PJ, big fan of your stuff. 99% sure you would like the Scavenger's Reign on Max. It's animated sci-fi episodes are 25 minutes long. Okay. Oh, this is what we're talking about. Scavenger's Reign. I've never heard of it before, but yeah, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. Um, ask me about it next time. Thoughts on Jalbar Zoe? Appears in every book, but only established Summer Islander and got arrested. Quentin Viserys parallel role in the fic. Huge fan. Yeah, I do think that like Jalbar Zoe has to play a role later on, but I do wonder if George has even thought about it and if it's just like a mystery box. Um, but and so I have thought about it for the fanfic of one of the characters stopping by the Summer Islands on the way back from Slaver's Bay and dealing with the politics there. I mean, I think there should be something. Um, I think George was like trying to do something, so they made him one of the people that's arrested for Marjorie's infidelity and stuff like that. But like I do think that there should be more with him. Like, but I don't know if George has figured it out or thought about it. Um, but I mean, I think he's obviously a big Viserys parallel in the sense that every year he asks for like, forces and to help him retake his homeland, and he's a beggar king, and Viserys is the beggar king, and like you're supposed to think about Viserys in the same role, in the same sense as we think about Jalbar Zoe, like just living at court, existing, an amusement for people. But yeah, we're not going to help you, really. That's too big of a too big of an inconvenience, and that's what Viserys was doing, um, in his beggar king days. But yeah, the character exists for that function. But I do wonder, like, what kind of trouble he could enter in later, if he ever got forces and wanted to return, or what's going on in the Summer Islands, and but I'd like to bring him back, and have a character stop in the Summer Islands. um I don't know if you know anything about it, but in the realm of time travel stories, have you read the webcomic Homestuck and know anything about it? I do not know anything about Homestuck. Um, huh. We talking about we're talking about this Homestuck. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about Homestuck. Is there a time travel element? I guess. Oh, there's all these like. Oh my god, this looks complicated. Like people doing timelines. They're like, okay, this is Dave doing shit. Then there's a split Doom timeline, loop, split. John doing shit. John appears and fucks with shit. This becomes the actual timeline. Original events don't exist anymore. More shit that didn't happen. Noodly windy arms. Like, it seems complicated. I'll have to check it out. Um. Okay. Who will take the throne from Aegon the Sixth? Bran. Well, I imagine it would be Dany, unless she gets interrupted or something. I mean, you have to see about what happens, but it's like, the idea is that there's going to be this second dance of the dragons where she comes back and fights Aegon, and then will she like win and then need to go up and fight the others, or will she like interrupt her battle, go up to fight the others, and then while she's gone, something happens to Aegon? Um, like Cersei retakes power or something, or something like that. That's a possibility, but we're a long way away from that. But yeah, it's either one of those two things, right? That like, and then or maybe he never loses power, and then everybody's kind of like at the God's eye in this final battle, but we don't know. But um, recommend Dan Simmons' Hyperion to all. Yeah, yeah. People talk about Hyperion a lot. This is Dan Simmons' Hyperion. I people bring this. People bring um him up a lot. 1989 science fiction novel, won the Hugo, features multiple timelines and characters, and follows a similar structure to Canterbury Tales. Oh, that's interesting. So that you don't know which like timeline like the tale is on. Um, but yeah, and then followed by the fall of Hyperion, and followed by Endymion. Oh, it just keeps going. Rise of Endymion. Jeez. Okay, so they just, or maybe it's picked. No, it's still him. It's still Dan Simmons. Um, let's see here. What sources do you read on the Israel and Hamas Palestinian conflict? I don't know what to believe and would like more than the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Um, honestly, right now it's really, really difficult. Um, I there's so much misinformation right now that I don't even know if like up to date stuff is really um relevant, because people just lie and exaggerate and change shit, and it's just like it's so ridiculous. But I think you're if you'd like to like just have a general sense of what the average, I think what's more important, like the truth isn't necessarily even that important as like what the people on the ground believe. And so I think like check out the front page of Al Jazeera, check out the front page of BBC, and check out the front page of Washington Post, New York Times. And you kind of get a general sense of what those publics, and I sometimes checked out like the Israeli Times or Jerusalem Post, but you get a sense of like what the average person is being fed in those different environments. Because like you can sit in one place all day and in one bubble all day and be like, oh well, they showed that Islamic Jihad like blew up that hospital. And like, does it really even matter at this point? Like, who blew up the hospital? Like, because millions of other people are not believing that, and they're believing some other narrative. And so all you can kind of do is like find the different narratives and kind of to get a vibe of what's going on. Because at this point, like people are dying right and left. It's like so like the details on like which person and how many people are dying in whatever area, it kind of becomes less important. I know it's of course not unimportant to like people on the ground, like people that like have family dying in Gaza or in Israel, but like to an outsider, it's like, you know, how much does this happening on this day matter? When another building falls and another 200 people die, but it's worth knowing and like what the average person kind of believes. So I mean, you can kind of like, let's go to like, this is like Al Jazeera English. Their big thing: fears of strike on hospital grows. 8,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza. Um, you know, So you get your pictures of absolute destruction. You get your people dying. There's um, journalists targeted and killed in Lebanon. There's various opinions. You do this, and then I don't know. We can check out um, Jerusalem Post, and you just get like rockets boom throughout north as IDF attacks Gaza. 1,400 Israelis murdered. It's all you can kind of do at this point is like do we anything here about the 8,000 Gazans? No. Is there anything about the 1,400 Israelis in the other source? No. That's all you could do is kind of like go back and forth and check and check the different sources. But the exact things on the ground aren't very important because it's not like it's not changing anyone's mind. Like everyone is already in their stovepipe beliefs. It's and if there is one subject to not trust media on, it's Israel Palestine. I understand people like don't trust media on various things, but like the one thing that you just like, oh god, it's just everyone is so biased and they're like playing to paying audiences is it. Um, but man, what a just sad shame, sad shame. Um, Favorite Martin Scorsese movie? Mine is The Departed, and Killers of the Flower Moon was pretty good. Hot take: Ernest was right in the end. Um, you know, I know like Carmine uh loves The Departed, but I am not so wild on The Departed. My favorite is Goodfellas. I think Goodfellas is just such a well-paced, entertaining, fun movie. Fun and violent and emotional movie. Um I've seen, let's see the ones I've seen. I've seen Shutter Island, don't really care for it. I've seen Wolf of Wall Street, whatever. I've seen Taxi Driver. Um, but I think for me, like I just liked Goodfellas all the way through. Maybe it's just because Ray Liotta was like so fucking good in that, and he's just given such time to shine. Um, there's just so many like I've seen Cape Fear, I've seen Casino. Um, I don't know. The I guess like one of the things I've seen Mean Streets. There's just so many like little good scenes. Like there's this scene in Goodfellas that I really liked where his wife flushes all the drugs, and from her perspective, like that's the smart thing to do. Like people were coming in, and she needed to flush all the drugs, and you know, the husband's like, what were you thinking? What were you doing? And you're just like, and it's just like you can feel like the actual like the anxiety and madness between them, like this like bickering couple over, and like from her perspective, like she was right. Yeah, flush the drugs. Um, let's see. I'm a big fan of your work since 2015. Love you, Preston. Thank you. You and Carmine make an epic team. Did you watch Dark? I did watch Dark. Dark was good, but it's hard to get through, man. That's a lot of effort. A lot of effort to get through, but it was really great. It was good. It was really good. Uh, but man, just slow and emotional. And I didn't watch 1899. People say it was really good, and too bad it was canceled. And Hannibal, the show, I never watched. Some people really liked it. I don't know. I don't know. Um, Switch hands. Are you all toddlers? This is how behind I am in the chat. We're catching up to the tables, the switching hands dumb. Eating tutorial. What witchcraft is this? I'm telling you, man. Switch hands. Um, that was cake, not banana. um, brownie and no milk. Yeah, I know. Thoughts on the whole U.S. bombing Syria? Um, huh, did we? Hmm. Well, according to our news, the strikes in Syria have nothing to do with Israel or Gaza, which, um, which who knows? Hmm. Iran linked sites in Syria. So, I mean, U.S. has a very complicated Syria relationship, but for those that don't know, that after the 6 Day War, um, Israel um, took a bunch of different controlled lands. They took a piece of southern Lebanon. They took what we call the Golan Heights in Syria. They took the West Bank from Jordan. They took Gaza and Sinai from Egypt. Um, in a peace agreement, they gave Sinai back to Egypt, but not Gaza, kept Gaza. In a peace agreement, Jordan gave up control of the West Bank. They eventually gave back most of the lands with Syria. There's a few little areas that were not given back to Lebanon. Um, but but they have not given back the Golan Heights. Golan Heights, um, it's fairly unpopulated, though there are some like wineries and like agriculture stuff that Israel does there now. Um, but it's of all of the peace agreements that would be easiest for Israel to settle would be probably the Golan Heights with Syria. Like hand back Golan Heights, Syria recognizes Israel. And so for that reason, there's not like just settlers just being put in West Bank, like it is with the West Bank with the Golan Heights. But the problem is that like Syria is largely supported by Iran, and Iran probably wouldn't stand for a peace agreement. So Syria has never been able to really make a peace agreement with Israel over the Golan Heights, and so Syria has kind of been this like in this horrible tug of war. I mean, they're a horrible government to begin with, but then they're in this horrible tug of war with like Russian powers and American powers and Israeli powers and Iranian powers, just tugging around on this like horrible fascist state of Syria. Even though Syria is like the most beautiful country in the world, but like on the ground, and the people are so sweet, and it's so beautiful. Um, so, I mean, I think the U.S. was probably thinking, oh, in this situation where probably Iran was doing something bad in Syria, and and the U.S. saw an opportune time to do a strike where Syria probably didn't, and Iran didn't feel like they had any power or strength to retaliate. You know, like right now, Iran and Syria are probably like, oh my God, we don't want to get dragged into a war. We do not want to get dragged into a war. And then the US is like, yep, perfect opportunity to like get rid of some like site that Iran was doing something shady at that we wanted to get rid of. So that's probably what's going on. Because right now, like both of them are probably like, oh my God, especially Iran, Iran was supporting Hamas for so many years, and then like for Hamas to do something this crazy, Iran's probably like, oh my God, like I hope we don't get blamed for this. And so now the U.S. probably feels like they can do whatever they want, and Iran's gonna like just take it, you know. That's my guess. So China doesn't allow gay marriage. No, China does not allow gay marriage. No place in Japan doesn't allow gay marriage. Korea doesn't allow gay marriage. Just Taiwan. Just Taiwan. I mean, it's one of the reasons why Taiwan is like so open to it. Is they're like, well, if China's going to do the opposite, we're going to do this. You know. Um. Preston, you missed what I wrote in my super. Um. I mean, yeah. It examines its relationship with powers beyond transhistorical norms. Ideas for Bravo story in parts. Cersei's gender bent. James IV of England, who is obsessed with witchcraft and tries to maintain absolutionist monarchy over a rising mercantile gentry in Parliament, leading to English Civil War, with a Parliament winning, leading to England becoming a constitutional monarchy. Charles I, James' son of the current king, is later executed for refusing to submit. Do you think this is where the Bravo story is heading with regards to Westeros? I mean, what I imagine the Bravo story was the current Sea Lord like dies, and then the new Sea Lord might be open to supporting like some sort of king in Westeros, whether it be probably Aegon or something. Um, but but I would have to look at like the actual like historical precedent behind it. If Bravos is supposed to be, Florence and things like this. I didn't think about it in the sense of like the constitutional monarchy, and we're talking about like Charles I. This is like Cromwell kind of area. Um, and if like the key holders would be like the equivalent to like the British Parliament, and because I mean, for those that don't know, like there was this period in British history where Cromwell like overthrew the king, and they restored the monarchy, but like the Parliament under Cromwell gained a lot more power, and so like after that, like Parliament really ruled the country or had a lot more control over the country until today, where Parliament and the king has no power and Parliament rules everything. So could kind of a similar situation happen with the key holders, like wresting the power away from the Sea Lord. That's all possible. I didn't think about it in that sense, but there does seem to be something that's going to go on with the key lords, with the key holders in Bravos. But I thought it had to do with the elections rather than anything else. I didn't know if it was like actually like having enduring power. Um, but it's something to think about. Who knows? Maybe it'll work out. I haven't put too much thought into like where we're going to bring the Bravo story, or like what with the Bravo story would happen. I think when I did my Faceless series, I just kind of said, well, all we know is that there's this tumultuous time, and this new Sea Lord is coming, which probably means like there's going to be some changing of allegiances. But I didn't think about them switching to a parliamentary system like based on like the keyhole, like the key holders. Um, I have a crippling tea addiction and gave all my silver to China. All I have is a massive navy and a lot of poppies. What should I do? Um, this gets into the joke here is that like the Opium Wars is that the supposedly when people talk about the history of like China and Britain, they talk about like the opium tea trade and like an imbalance of like payments, and this leading to various problems with regards to like colonialism and such. But and I think more is made of it than like actual like real history. So yes, like England was buying a lot of tea, and so they kind of felt that like they needed to trade something back to China, so they were trading opium. But like the thing is like Britain already kind of recognized that and had started tea colonies other places outside of China, in like Ceylon, for example. Um, so they were already kind of like moving away from this. So like today, when you talk to like an average Chinese person, they really kind of believe that all the colonial powers like weakened China and it all fell apart, and we're now just like getting back to the point that we were strong. And it's like, I mean, not really. Okay, like and they start talking about like things like opium wars and Boxer rebellions and things like that, and you're like, you know, like things like that don't cripple people forever. Like people come back from those sorts of things like pretty fast. When you think about like how fast it took Germany to go back from like being utterly destroyed in World War II to like being a booming economy. Yes, there was like aid, but like at the same time, like people can bounce, like countries bounce back from stuff pretty quickly. Like they really have this idea of like extracting wealth. Like we were rich and then the foreigners stole our money and then we were poor. And you're like, that's not really how wealth works. Like wealth for the most part is actually like the crops on the ground. Like they're not taking your land, and the cultural capital, like how many people are educated and stuff. Like whether or not people steal your gold or whatever, your vases or whatever, doesn't like keep you poor. You're not like, there's a lot more to it. So like I kind of don't buy the whole like colonial powers destroyed China thing. Like China was in a lot of fucking wars with itself that beggared itself, and then they answered up with their decades long civil war with a freaking the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which utterly destroyed like the people. Like that was more brutal than anything else. And even that, like they came back pretty well. So like I mean, crippling overpopulation and stuff like that. So I get it. Like people make a lot of like the opium wars, and I don't actually buy that they're the thing that like crippled China. I understand that like in the Western sense, because we like to think about history in terms of war, and like that's the thing that like there's wars and Britain's in the West and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some historian's going to tell me I'm wrong about that, but I don't kind of like buy it. Like, it's a huge country with hundreds and hundreds of millions of people. And like, I just don't think that like all of them were addicted to opium. I don't think there was like this massive addiction of opium. And I don't think there was this like massive war that like obliterated people. The opium wars were not that large. Meanwhile, like the Chinese Civil War was fucking huge, so, uh, um, you gotta watch the One Piece show. The manga is as ambitious and smart as A Song of Ice and Fire, an existential manifesto, great themes too. No nostalgia, just read it. My first manga tops Dune and Sopranos. Yeah, I'll do it if Carmine like really recommends it, because I know he is a huge One Piece fan. So I mean, I'll read One Piece if uh if Carmine recommends it. But like, wow, 1,000 episodes. Took her about 3 months. Huh. Maybe. Maybe. We will see. We will see. Um. All right. Am I coming to the... Have you ever read Ayn Rand and thoughts on it and her? I have read Ayn Rand. And I don't have... I I don't have a strong opinion of her because she kind of has this well, people one like misinterpret her. Like the people that worship her are people that shouldn't be worshiping her because she's actually like a complete atheist and stuff like that. But you have right wingers like worshiping her. My problem with her is that she is the kind of this fundamental premise that like that most of society are leeches. That there are these producers and that everybody else is just leeching. And a lot of people have these kind of ideas that like, oh gosh, like I'm the one going to work every day and that homeless guy is a leech and these people on welfare are leeches and I'm busting my butt producing. And I don't view society that way. Like I view society as like a lot of people are busting their butt. Most people are working. Some people get to extract more, like get more, like more of their paycheck, and some people don't get, like, you know, their the money. And I compare this to like, okay, let's say we're talking about like a bottle of clean water and a diamond. You know, like a bottle of clean water has like absolute utility. Like it keeps you alive. It's useful, but it costs nothing. You know, and the people that produce it hardly make any profit off of it. You know, maybe if they sell it in the bottle and stuff, and they upmarket it with advertising and stuff. While a diamond is worthless, doesn't do anything for anybody, but somebody you sell it, and this guy makes a whole bunch of money off of it, even though it adds zero value to anything. So it's all about this like do I really think the diamond manufacturer and the diamond salesman is contributing more than the water salesman and the water producer? Like, no, that's ridiculous. Um, and so yeah, this idea that like all these people are leeches is such a dangerous idea. I don't think there's that. I don't believe there are leeches like to that degree. Sure there's leeches, but there's rich leeches and poor leeches. Like the diamond manufacturer might be a leech, like um but yeah, I just don't view it that way, that like that there are these like hard workers and the rest of everybody else is trying to figure out how to ride on the coattails of the hard workers. I just don't get it, you know. Um so that's kind of my problem with her. It's not that like she's also like against charity as a concept and weird things. Um Gone with the Wind. George mentioned it often in interviews, and it seems like an influence on A Song of Ice and Fire with characters and story. Um, Gone with the Wind is fascinating because it's a lot like um, War and Peace. And if you've ever read War and Peace, it's about characters, but then in the background, all these massive battles are happening where tens of thousands of people are dying, but you don't really care about them. You care about the characters you're reading about. And so, it's the statement about like what we value, and we value like the people we know. And so Gone with the Wind is kind of similar because you got this backdrop of the Civil War, but you're like worried about Scarlett's love life, like you're sitting there like, I don't care that hundreds of thousands of soldiers are dying and these people are clueless. Like, I care about Scarlett, like. And so it's kind of a similar thing with A Song of Ice and Fire, where we start caring about these like little things, these few characters that we know and love, but at least they are involved in the politics. But I think that's perhaps why George kind of references it because we do care about these like families and these people and their personal lives because we get to know them, and the war is the backdrop, and that we don't really care about the average person. Um, Speaker of the House, end of democracy. Um, Speaker of the House. I mean, he's a typical Republican. Um, he's a mask off, like typical Republican. I mean, the guy is super anti-abortion. He's an election denier. Um, he's as bad as Jim Jordan. It's just that Jim Jordan went around making a face for himself, not wearing a sport coat. And, you know, this guy did the exact same thing. He's from Louisiana, one of our most um, conservative states. He believes most of the same things, if not like the worst. He's just one of the most conservative members of the House, and he's now Speaker. And so it's going to be very, very difficult to get anything done, for him to make any compromises. Now, perhaps occasionally responsibility breeds moderation. Like maybe he'll change. But if he starts doing stuff like pushing the impeachment of Biden, which is a waste of fucking time, like trying to put forward bills to like ban abortion and stuff like that, then the Republicans are going to get voted out, which is good, you know. But yeah, he's inexperienced. He's not going to be able to compromise. He's not going to be able to do anything. I mean, he's going to make Kevin McCarthy look super super competent. And so when I wouldn't say the end of democracy. The end of democracy is if Trump is reelected. Like that's the end of democracy. But like, or if a Republican wins, like we we need a good we need some years with the Republicans out of power to reestablish like legitimacy of democracy, um, uh, or else things are really going to fall apart in America. It's just it's we're teetering on the edge, on the edge. Yeah, I mean the fact that he was part of the coup attempt. I don't know how much he was the organizer. May have been. I don't know, but it's just um, yeah. Um, have you seen Glidus and Swifty's magnum opus? We're talking about their Pictionary thing. Um, I watched a second of it. I would have. They were doing random theories. I thought it would be like actual theories that were out there, but um, LOL. Democrats are just as bad, honestly. First of all, you're not laughing out loud, so I don't understand LOL. Like you're not sitting there going ah ha 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 ha. Like why? Like why are you putting LOL? Like I don't get it. Like you're not laughing out loud, so why put LOL? Like what's the function of it? If someone could explain that to me, explain it. But like Democrats are not just as bad. Okay? All right. There's no comparing them. Okay? Democrats believe in democracy. They believe in elections. They're pro-choice. They believe that climate change is real. They're not pushing like what do the Republicans stand for right now? The Republicans right now are banning abortion in America, calling elections faked and rigged, trying to impeach uh, Biden over nothing, and then cutting off aid for Ukraine. Like what do the Republicans stand for, and how can you possibly say that Democrats are just as bad? Like Democrats are all for aid for Ukraine. Democrats are pro-choice. Democrats believe climate change is real. Democrats believe in democracy. Like I don't get it. Like I just don't I don't get it at all. Like it's just like insanity. Insanity to say something like that. But LOL, LOL, LOL. Um Democrats equal democracy and Republicans equal republic. Well, I mean, obviously, like what we have is a democratic republic, but Democrats are for a democratic republic, while Republicans are for dictatorship. I mean, they're claiming all the elections that we had that elected Biden were fake. You know, like how can we even like take them seriously? How can we take them seriously? Um, the you would hate One Piece main characters. Just does stuff because people follow him just because. Basically everything just because. Ooh. Carmine, I have to confirm that. I am big on like human motivation being a very important like aspect of like why characters are doing stuff is a very important thing to me. Um which so we'll see about that. We'll see about that. Yeah, Carmine will have to tell me if that is true. Um, Non-Trump Republicans I can respect, but 75% of the Republican Party are absolute nuts. I would respect them more if they actually like stood up for themselves and like stopped the the other ones. I mean, the fact that like all of them said okay and had the current speaker. I mean, granted, it would have never there would have never been a speaker either way, but the fact that they caved. I mean, the thing is like it's more that like there's the crazy ones and then the opportunist ones, you know. Um Hi from Sydney. How do you express that you found something funny if you don't use LOL? I mean, you can put haha, but LOL means like laugh out loud. And did you find it funny? Like everyone's heard the opinion that Democrats and Republicans are different, and everyone's heard the opinion that Republicans and Democrats are the same. Like those two opinions have been out there, so I don't see how exposure to either one would invoke humor. You know, like some people in America think guns there should be more gun control, and some people in America think that like there should be no gun control at all. But like, how is exposure to that political position funny? Like funny is usually when your body is reacting to something like new and unexpected that makes you like rethink information that's already like been presented to you. You know, like take my wife, please, right? Oh, I thought he was saying take my wife as in like for example. Now he's saying please. You're reversing the whole thing. My brain is dealing with the disparity and the illogic. It's funny. You know? That's what humor is. So, what is the new information that is changing your perspective to make you laugh? Did he not know that I was a liberal? Like every stream I talk about being a liberal. So it can't be that. So like what's the humor? You can't just like add LOL somewhere. Like it's people add LOL because they want to fucking troll somebody and get a rise out of them. Like I want to belittle your position by claiming that I'm laughing about it. It's like, but you've been exposed to that position. Like there's nothing funny about that position existing. Like this is the thing is like people laughing about things where like that's like what laughter is about. Like what like it's a misusage of humor. It's just like it's fundamentally not understanding what humor is.
I love how you go into it. It's such detail.
I know, but it's like
Real quick. I know the moment I say this word, everyone's gonna go ew, especially like the super left, the woke scolds are gonna go ew, and even the Gen Zs. But
mm,
there's something I sent you a clip. I sent you a clip I'm trying to send you to on Facebook. I don't know if you got it. It's taking a minute to
oh, okay.
load. Did you get it? Did it send all the
Let
way?
me see. Let me see. Let me see.
No, it didn't. Fuck. I sent it to you on Discord. Hover your mouse over the clip on Discord
Oh my
and
god.
just click
Oh my
like I know.
god. Gotta open
I
up
know.
Discord.
Dude,
You
if we're gonna
know
get
that
back
like
on Destiny,
you're
you're
like,
gonna have to.
can I open up something that takes a bunch of memory and might switch my mic and like everything around and fuck things
My
up? Like
brother in
really? You want
Christ,
me to do that? in the middle of
My
my
brother in Christ,
stream.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to send you a screenshot later of like the 47,000 tabs on Chrome I have open, and I'm fine. I have fucking Chrome on. I'm downloading like a bunch of torrents. I have like a bunch. I'm on Skype for some reason still. I promise you, it's a Mac problem, not a PC problem.
I get it. I'm just like, why? Like, is it worth the risk? Like, I'm doing my cost
Just
benefit
download it.
analysis.
Just download it and like exit out.
I mean, it's already when I open it up, it's like that's what everything like initializes. I have no idea. You want me to take
I don't know
fine, fine,
why
fine, fine.
Facebook is
This
taking
better
so
be
long.
worth it, man. This better be
Oh no,
fucking
just
worth it.
play it on stream. I know like the super left and the woke schools hate Destiny because he owns them every time. But this one clip I clipped of him talking to Trump supporters. Well, Adam and Sitch aren't really Trump supporters, but they love to do that thing where they criticize both sides, but it's mostly
Mm.
95% criticism of the left and every
Yeah,
now and
yeah.
then occasional criticism of the right. Maybe.
Okay. All right. I'm downloading it.
Also, Daniel Basic, Basic, I think his name is. Um, he's right. I it, I hate to say that, but
Oh,
yeah, no, that's
that like, um, it.
Luffy's motivation to be king of the pirates is just because. Yeah, that's. Well, actually, no. Uh, no, yeah, never mind. You know, he's right. No, that's I can't say anything. No, he's right.
If you're just calling Trump a fascist, okay, what is that? If you don't give any sort of explanation or understanding of why people are voting for Trump, and all you do is you label him a fascist, obviously, I think that's going to lead people in your audience to assume that people voting for him are voting for him because they want the fascist, and therefore there's no way to convince those people. There's no way to win those people or in a debate or in a conversation, and the only alternative is through violence.
I agree that it's bad rhetorical strategy, which is I don't do it, but everything you just said is true. People that support Donald Trump do support fascism. They're just too stupid to realize it. That is absolutely a factual matter.
Okay, so at that point, we're just have to defeat these people through physical combat. If we
Not
don't
necessarily.
Beat them through voting,
I think that our
essentially?
institution still exists quite
Is
strongly.
calling them stupid
but, like,
a good way to win them over in a political fight?
Generally, no. That's why I don't usually call them stupid.
Okay, well, you just did.
I did now because we're having a frank conversation. I will have a frank conversation. The way that I appeal to Republicans, you call it empathy. I call it treating people like retarded 4-year-olds. That's how I reach a conservative. I've got to be incredibly patient. I have to be incredibly kind. I've got to pretend. I can't even pretend I'm talking to my son. It is condescending because they're
That's
retarded.
exactly what I'm
They don't
talking
believe in
about.
vaccines.
Yeah.
They don't believe in climate change. They don't believe in science. They don't believe in academia. Half of them don't think we went to the moon. They don't think that the election. How the else am I supposed to treat these people? Yeah, of course they're retards. But yeah, you treat them like that. You be kind, you be patient, you be empathetic, and you do what you can. But at the end of the day, I believe in the things that I do for good reason. And it's not like I'm going to sit here and pretend that me and a conservative have the same factual standing on every single issue we debate. That's insane. It's literally the party of like science denialism. Half these people think the earth is 6,000 years old and the dinosaurs aren't real. Like, how the supposed to take them seriously in some kind of scientific or factual sense?
Yeah.
Ironically, the new Speaker of the House thinks the Earth is 6,000 years old. He's not wrong. I know, once again, I know people like love to mauld over Destiny. By the way, for those of you who don't know, maulding is when you're so mad you're balding. I know a lot of the super lefts and the woke scolds hate him, whatever, but he's not wrong in this clip.
He's not wrong on any of that. Like he's right. Like Candace Owens doesn't believe we went to the moon.
That's not true. Is that true? That's not true. Candace Owens?
Candace Owens. She
has a modicum of intelligence.
She was just on Bill Maher's like weed smoking hour thing, and she like talked about how she didn't believe we went to the moon, and like Bill Maher was just beside himself. He like couldn't even like talk to her. He was just like, "What?" And her whole excuse was like name the. She's like, how many like. Why did we never go back? And he's like, we went back like a dozen times. There was like a dozen Apollo missions. And she's like, yeah, who are on them? And he's like, I don't know their names. Like, and that was her big thing. Like, you can't name the people that were on the later Apollo missions, therefore they didn't happen. Like, even though you can just fucking Google them.
Well, here's the thing. The reason I brought up Destiny is because that guy said Democrats are just no, they're not. Destiny just highlighted how you have one side that believes in all
very concisely.
Right, like we have one side that believes in like things and one
No,
side that believes in nothing, like
that
not academia, not
Destiny
science.
is absolutely
Right.
correct. There. The current Speaker of the House, like, yeah, believes in the Earth is 6,000 years old. Like, they don't believe in vaccines. They don't believe it, like a lot of them don't believe we went to the moon. It's really really fucking difficult. It's really fucking difficult. I don't see much defense for it. You have in order to have like the people that defend it like tend to be these really weird conspiracy theorists that like have all these like odd ideas, and in a sense religion is a conspiracy theory. It's just like a bunch of fucking people believe shit like that that they heard on hearsay. No, he's absolutely right. There's just like we're at a point where it's just like, oh my god, like these people are so stupid. What do you say? Like how when you don't believe, like when you don't believe in the moon landing, like what do you fucking say?
Yeah, but Democrats are just as bad because, of course. And stop. This.
No.
By the way, speaking of which, can I bring this up? Is there any more super chats? I don't want to.
Yeah, there's this. Yeah, there's a couple. One Piece is absurdist. Plot holes absolutely exist. The character motivation stays intact, though. Character motivation and growth is at its heart. But you're saying it's just that happens, but it's not perfect. Yeah, that there are some.
I love this series, but I can't in good faith recommend it to you because it is a commitment, and I don't think you like. I would recommend you Cowboy Bebop. I would recommend that to my mom because that's a show that anyone can get into. It's cool, stylistic. The plot is awesome. But like One Piece, you really. I just watched an episode where they're on the fucking Sky Island and they're afraid that they're going to be set upon by wild animals and monsters, and they are. And then the wild wolves all of a sudden start having a party and dancing with them. Like, that's ridiculous. That's funny for me, but you would be like, this is stupid. Like, this is stupid. This is the Skypiea episode for those of you who are One Piece fans. Leave this down. I'm sorry. Anyways.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, which is more worth it? One Piece or Berserk?
For you, Berserk, if you want to read the manga, it's great. I got a website for you. If you're going to watch the show, don't watch the 90s one. That one kind of pacing is bad. Watch the movies. Don't watch the 2016, 2017 show. That is trash. Human garbage trash. Everyone who worked on that show should be put on trial at The Hague. Like that is whoever. I'm just gonna get upset. I'm sorry.
All right. In the same book, I think George R. R. Martin based Samwell on Frederick the Great, who was effeminate, and his father would routinely abuse him in to be a manly general. That's interesting. I mean, obviously, Sam is also based on George himself, but I don't know. George, he doesn't talk very much about his father. I think like, who was a longshore ship guy. I think like, I think maybe like George like felt disappointment or something from his like manly father, but like it didn't go that far. But there's like he definitely there's so much of he says that Sam is his character, is that so Frederick the Great. Oh. Was King of Prussia, yeah, though, man, I mean, I guess Sam has to though be like an exaggeration. Like George himself couldn't even be like Sam, right? That's just ridiculous. No human being could actually be like Sam. But I don't know. I mean, One Piece is so popular now because everybody watched the Netflix series, which you said was okay.
It was as an adaptation. It was fine. It was fine. They needed more episodes. If they had 4 to 5 more episodes, yeah, it would have been great. But it's an easy 6 out of 10.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
Fine.
What are your top top 5 films and books, non A Song of Ice and Fire. For a long time, and I haven't thought about it for about 20 years, but for a long time, like I had like my favorite movies were like Donnie Darko and Fight Club, and I even liked. I'm trying to think. I even liked American Beauty and things like this. Like I really fucking liked them. Time has gone by, and like I still think they're strong movies, but I don't know if like somebody was like, "What are your top 5 movies?" I'd still pick them. And so I don't know. Like I think like because now I'm like stepping back and saying like objectively what's a perfect movie like from a filmmaker's perspective, and then like what spoke to me emotionally at the time. You know, like there's some movies that like speak to me so emotionally at the time that I think about them for weeks, but I kind of recognize that they're not great movies. So like Fight Club spoke to me a lot. American Beauty spoke to me a lot at the time. Before Sunrise and Before Sunset spoke to me a lot at the time. Barcelona, there's a movie called Barcelona, and there's a Last Days of Disco, like spoke to me a lot at the time. And I still like very much revere them, but I don't know if like I can pick like top 5 ever, because I can step back and be like, well, what is a perfect movie? And I'd be like, well, Jaws is a perfect movie. Okay. Jaws is a fucking perfect movie, and I could watch it a million times over, but did it really like emotionally punch me in the stomach the way, another one did, on a subjective, like emotional sense? I don't know. Like, I can step back and be like, oh, The Godfather is a great movie, but I didn't really relate to any of the characters in The Godfather. It's not like I'm sitting there being like, I really relate to Michael. No, I don't. My dad wasn't a gangster. Like I didn't, I don't understand what it's like to have my older brother machine gunned down. I don't get it. But, so I don't know. It's, do you have a hard time with this kind of question, Carmine? I know you love rankings.
Yeah. No, I don't actually. Top 5 films and books. That's a toughie. Top 5 films. Yeah, the first Star Wars, The
Mm.
Departed was fucking great. Fight Club. I like Fight Club. Whew, top 5 films I would go back to and watch again and again.
I
That's
mean,
a
you're
that's
right
that's
that
a
like
thinker.
Star Wars, watch it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Star Wars, 100%. I wouldn't. I like Godfather, but like every now and then, like
That's too much.
to me, what makes a great film is one film that you can watch again and again and again. I never get sick of it.
Yeah, but then there's some movies that like really affected me that I don't ever want to watch them again.
Like what?
I think
Like The Room?
someone mentioned like Prince of Darkness like last week, and I'm like, oh man, like that movie really affected me when I was young, and I don't really have any desire to watch it again, but like it really like affected me.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I never want to see Schindler's List a second time. I know it was a great movie, but I never want to watch it again, like ever. Like what a solid waste of time that would be. Like.
Jesus.
So I don't know. With a heavy heart, I've got to give it like a non-answer. Like, oh God. Um, and then certain movies like feel really great because they have like surprise endings. Like the first time you watch The Usual Suspects or the first time you watch Shawshank Redemption, like that's a great fucking moment to be the first time watching those movies. To watch them a second time, who cares? Like what's coming. You know what's coming. But the first time, man, what a fucking great movie. So, I'm so sorry to give a non-answer on that. Destiny is debating Ben Shapiro next month. Is that true?
Yes.
I mean, Destiny is going to fucking murder Ben Shapiro.
I don't know that. This is something I need to give him credit for. So he's right now the thing he's been doing on stream for the last couple of days. He's actually been researching the historical like thing about Palestine and Hamas and Israel. And I'm gonna give him a lot of respect for actually saying he
Preparing.
doesn't know this and he's actively doing the research because people won't not do that. People cannot stand to not know anything. He will fully admit he doesn't know this and go and research it.
So Ben Shapiro does have a debate background, and so he knows all of the schemes to cheat. While Destiny has just been debating like in his spare time for like 20 years. Okay, so the so like Ben Shapiro will actively consciously know like I am losing this argument, I'm going to switch topics. Or I am losing this argument, I'm going to use rhetoric at this point. You know, I'm going to do this. Destiny's strategy is try to know everything. So if they switch topics, you can debate that too. And then when they switch, just try to debate that again. You know? So if Shapiro is successful in switching topics to something Destiny doesn't know about, which if they're going to be talking to Israel Palestine, it's probably going to happen. Israel Palestine is a funny thing because so Ben Shapiro does Gish Gallop, Gish Gallop is when you spew a bunch of facts, spew a bunch of knowledge at somebody, and it's so many like points that are wrong or so many things that are like that you can't research that are off that you exhaust your opponent, and the opponent is just like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I like you spewed 20 false things or like 10 things I don't know about, 5 things that are false, like 5 things that are true. Like, what do I do? So Ben Shapiro's main strategy is Gish Gallop. So Israel Palestine is like the prime example. If you ever debate anyone, it's just Gish Gallop, because you'll be on a strong point, the important point, and then they'll bring up some irrelevant piece of shit, and you'll get lost in the weeds on an irrelevant piece of shit. Like, for instance, the fucking hospital is a prime example of getting lost in the weeds. Who gives a fuck about the one hospital? Like, it's irrelevant. Yeah, some people died. Irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Irrelevant in numbers. It's irrelevant in everything. Who did it? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But people will like talk about this and try to win this little point when like, you know, and so Israel Palestine is all about that, like choosing some point in history and like arguing like, well, the Palestinians screwed up when they did this and this and this. Yeah, of course. Like, oh, I didn't know what they did on October 7th, like 1993, like at 4 p.m. Oh, well, Jesus. I guess you're right. You know, like that's where they're always going to get you. You know, so so Ben Shapiro is going to try all of that shit, but we'll see. We'll see if Destiny can switch gears, and I mean, if they're talking just Israel Palestine, I think maybe Ben Shapiro will win. But like, if they talk anything else, if they start talking about some other issues, I think Destiny is better at explaining things.
Did you see
With
Destiny's
real
debate
facts.
with the did you see
Yeah.
his debate with the 2 final boss of the pro-life movement?
Oh no, really?
He he was talking with this one woman who, first off, you also have to, people don't understand this. People Some people cannot concede on a position even if they're wrong. For example, he
Mm,
was debating this 2 women. One of the women is this really like annoying woman who her whole job, her whole life is living out of a fucking Winnebago with her husband and kids, going around the country to debate and support pro-life movements. That is her whole shtick, right?
yeah,
She can never concede. There's no point in talking to her ever, like even to change her mind, because she's just never going to argue in good faith. It will always be bad faith because her
yeah.
livelihood depends on it. So talk, like, I understand the point of having these debates is to not change the other person's mind, but the audience's. But
The
but
audience,
at the
yeah.
same time, you do want to talk to someone that's, going to talk to you in good faith, and she could not do that. Her
Yeah, and I
livelihood
don't
depends
think
on
Ben
it.
Shapiro is going to be a good faith opponent, unfortunately. But I mean, obviously Destiny's doing it for clicks and money, but like Ben Shapiro's not going to be a good faith opponent. And for the most part, I actually think Destiny is a very good faith debater. Um, but yeah, it's too bad. He's not going to be up to against anybody that's good faith. Well. Have you seen Star Trek Lower Decks? Last week episode, they confirmed Tom Riker is alive. Everybody says Lower Decks is great. I haven't seen it. Carmine, you've seen a few episodes, yeah?
I've seen the whole thing. I have not seen a new season. I think they're up to season 4 now. It is fun. It's very fun.
Tom Riker, by the way, for those that don't watch Star Trek, is um, there's an episode in the Next Generation where they go to a planet and they find that years ago there was a transporter accident that cloned and replicated Will Riker. And so neither man is really the real Will Riker, but one got to live a life in Starfleet and got promoted, and the other was stuck on this planet for years and has now just escaped. And it's interesting because the guy who comes back was still in a relationship with Deanna Troi. They never broke up. And so he wants to like rekindle things with her and things like this. And then he ends up having a very big different plot line where he joins the Maquis, and which was a group that splintered from the Federation during the Cardassian Wars and everything. And then we never find, he gets captured and we have no idea what happens to him. But is Lower Decks canon? That's the question.
I think it is. And by the way, we have to.
Oh. Yeah.
Are there any more super chats? I kind of want to like take. I kind of want to have a rant against Red Letter Media because Mike has really annoyed the fuck out of me with his bullshit about like his refusal to even cover Strange New Worlds, which is really what the new Trek should have been. Like in one episode of one of the videos he did a couple months ago, he mentions how he won't even give New Strange New Worlds a shot because he saw the first episode. He hates how Captain Pike acts as a captain. He's way too like blasé and whatever, and he hates the lighting and the mood. And it's like, dude, you can't even give it a shot. Are you fucking serious? Strange New Worlds is great, and you won't even attempt to try it. It's this cage of nostalgia that we talked about when we talked about Star Wars Theory and him refusing to like accept Andor as Star Wars. Like, come on, try to like new shit.
He is very much like he's getting to be crotchety old man these days.
Some people throw that at you, by the way.
I suppose, but like, you do find me like liking new things, right? Like I don't know, like I'm not like, oh, these kids these days, like I find new media that I love and think it's great. That happens. Like we do our lists of our like favorite shows. I mean, I guess Mike does that too, but they're very. He's very much into he overpraises new original ideas, like something he's never seen before, which I find in film critics a lot. Like when Being John Malkovich came out, a lot of film critics were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so new and refreshing," and they gave it like a really good review. And that movie sucks. It's like it may be new, but it sucks, and like. But if you're watching movies all day and you're just seeing formula, when something new comes around, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so great. And so the last thing I watched with Red Letter Media is they did a watch through of the Friday the 13th movies.
Mm-hmm.
And Friday the 13th is a ridiculous series, and they get to part 9. And if you try to figure out like Jason lore, there's problems with it, but Jason lore for the most part makes sense up until part 8, and then it just completely goes off the rails. And part 9, all of a sudden Jason is a body hopping worm, and it's just like, where does this come from? But Mike is like, oh, I found it a little refreshing that it was something new other than like the same formula. And it's like, well, yes, because you're watching the movies back to back, but like part 9 is a horrible movie.
Well,
so
let me someone said here in the comments here. Let me see real quick. Someone said he doesn't have to watch something he doesn't like. That's the problem. He didn't finish it. I would completely and utterly understand if he watched 1, 2, 3 episodes, the 3-episode try, and didn't like it. The motherfucker didn't even get past the first episode before deciding it wasn't for him. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Like, look, in regards to, by the way, that is a good point that Carl got you on there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Oh yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look. I mean, realistically, I'm joking with the silverware thing. Like obviously I was raised a certain way, and so you see something different, you have that reaction. But I understand. Eat fucking food however the fuck you want. Okay, I'm joking when I say that like you're doing it wrong. This is why the whole time I was like, proper way. Like, but come on,
But no, as for the red letter media thing, look, I understand that the whole shtick here, and this is something that the old school YouTubers coming up, that was their whole shtick. They hate everything. They're angry about everything. Red letter media with the Plinkett reviews.
Some people are like, who's Red Letter Media? Red Letter Media are some film review guys that are pretty big on YouTube. They're famous for doing their first review of the Star Wars prequels that everybody watched, Mr. Plinkett's like reviews, and then they took that fame and do mainly film reviews where it's this guy Mike who's the main guy, and then who are the other two? Jay, who is a
Jay and Rich Evans.
Jay and Rich Evans. Jay being an absolute like insane person that knows every single director, stunt person, film guy that's ever been in the industry in every movie they've ever made, which is insane. Like down to like
who's the guy that made Twin Peaks?
Lynch, David Lynch.
He's a big David Lynch guy.
Yeah,
like he's a huge
he's
David Lynch fan.
They're all like film school, guys who like didn't do anything with their lives, who are now very successful, but like. And then Rich Evans has the appeal that he's so the everyman, but he's also like very intelligent and usually has the most right opinions, which is kind of funny, right? Like,
Really?
Don't you know what I'm talking about though? He's kind of the everyman, and usually his opinions are the ones where I'm like, yeah, that's really how I feel. And he explains it quite well. But he doesn't have the same sort of like encyclopedic knowledge of, certainly not Jay and Mike. But
do you understand what I'm saying about like these old school guys, like Angry Video Game Nerd, Angry Joe, Your Movies Suck, I Hate Everything. Like I understand. God, this is gonna sound so cringe. But I kind of understand Emergency Awesome now, and I feel like I owe this asshole an apology because you remember how cringe I was when we first started like podcasting together back in 2017. Yeah. Yes, it's been that long. I would always like rib on him every now and then because his whole shtick is everything is awesome.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of refreshing that he doesn't really hate on everything. He just doesn't really like.
I mean, I think that's why people like Chris Stuckman reviews and stuff.
Yes.
Like,
right.
Even though like he's not an expert on stuff, and his reviews are actually kind of like light. Like, he's just like, well, I really liked the visuals, like he's a layman, as layman as you and me. Like, people watch us for our expertise on Ice and Fire and on manga and stuff and Star Wars, but we're no film nerds. Like Red Letter Media, they're a bunch of film nerds. Well, Chris Stuckman, he's just a positive, regular guy that got lucky.
There's some truth to that, but what I was trying to say is I hate how Mike, he won't even cover Andor, he won't even give Strange New Worlds a shot because there's nothing to hate on that, and I kind of hate that that's kind of all they do now is just hate on shit, and that's all they ever cover. They never cover anything that's like decent or good.
I think it should have been their responsibility to watch Andor. I mean,
100%.
Yeah, you can't just like. You can't make your you can't like make your empire off of Star Wars and then just fucking like not even bother with Andor.
Say what you will about Star Wars theory. He hates well, he doesn't hate it. He just didn't like it. Fine, but at least he watched the whole thing and
Yeah,
gave his opinion on it. I disagree with his
right.
opinion, but I give him the respect for actually watching it. Mike just didn't even try. Like, why? Just
Yeah,
give it a
I will
shot.
say it is the worst thing in the world when someone hasn't even consumed the art and has an opinion on it. You know, like.
And once again, to the people saying Mike doesn't need to watch Andor or Strange New Worlds, true. But at the same time, that is how he made his bones on YouTube.
Mm,
What the content that put him on the map
yeah,
was the Star Wars stuff, right? And he loves Star Trek. He always bitches about the new Trek. And I will agree, Discovery sucks. Discovery's trash. But and Prodigy sucks too. But
right.
like there's some good new stuff out there. Give it a
Right. You can't
shot,
say like, I mean,
motherfucker.
it's
Come on.
because it's gotten to the point where when you say new Star Wars or new Trek, um, what do you mean? Like you can't just like because like not all new Star Wars is crap and not all new Star Wars is is good. Not all new Star Trek is bad, not all new Star Trek is good. Like, you know, it's no longer that like one thing that they can pay attention to. So, yeah, yeah. Is there a perfect film in your opinion? I think so. I think so. But uh the like I said, I mean I describe like a movie like Jaws just being like perfectly paced and rewatchable in that sense. I use it loosely because obviously there's going to be like goofs here and there and dialogue that could be like improved here and there. So nothing is perfect, but I think I think there are things that are so well crafted that uh that they're really well put together and rewatchable a million times and will be remembered in 100 years because they were put together so well. I don't know, but again, it's going to change on probably my day too. Um, how do you feel about centrists critiquing leftism? I think they're disingenuous. I don't actually believe there's many centrists left. Um, I think that people are usually lying and like they're either take this they like there's fence sitters and then there's like to hell with both of them like people, right? Republicans and Democrats are both bad and I just throw them all the way. And they think they're somehow better than the rest of us because they're above the decision, you know? Like oh, where should we go to eat? McDonald's or Burger King? I'm above you guys. I'd rather not eat. You're like fuck you. They're like, okay, fuck you. You know. I find centrists the same way. Like, there's no way you can be in the middle anymore. Like, how can you be in the middle between like there's so many issues where it's just like, what is the middle? Like when you're talking about democracy versus lack of democracy, like what is the middle for that? When you're talking about like banning abortion versus like having abortion, like like you can kind of come up with these things like, oh, restrictions up to this and this and this weeks, and you're like, no, because you know that like that's not where people are going on either side. Um, so I'm not for the fence sitting too much. Like, I'm a straight up liberal. That's where I think like positive change happens. But I just don't understand like how can you be like in the middle on, and I've heard people try to like say things like I've run into people that are like, oh well, I'm not that conservative. I believe that like I believe in global warming, but I believe it's exaggerated. I'm like, do you, or is that just a line? You know, I don't. I'm very mistrustful of like people that claim they're centrists because I wonder if they are. That's all. Hmm. Um. I don't know. Do you run into centrists very much, Carmine? Are there any left?
all the fucking time. It's the stupidest thing ever. That asshole who was like, Dems and Republicans are just the same. No, they're not. Stop it.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's a centrist or like an extreme to
That's
one way or
centrist
the
talk.
other, or like outside of it, just like don't care about politics.
No, that's centrist talk. That's I see
Okay.
this all the time from centrists all the time. I can't pick a side because they're the same. No, they're not. A European guy put it very, very in simple terms for me. He goes, I don't understand how Americans are having a hard time choosing being punched in the face and then not being punched in the face. Like, why is that such a complicated choice?
Right. Can I be
And
punched in the face but not as hard?
that's a centrist. Yeah.
Yeah. Um I don't know what ever watched James of Thrones theories, wacky stuff. Is he a YouTuber? I have not watched James of Thrones. Um John's Revenge, Breen's theories. No, I've not watched anything of his. Um yeah, I don't know. I get to the I'm an old man and I've heard almost all the theories.
By the way, I got called out majorly, and this person's got a point. WWC, whatever your name is, Carmine calling Mike out for not watching Andor, while he himself has not read the Dunk and Egg stories. True, true,
Yeah, get
true,
on
true,
that,
true.
man. What are you doing?
However, in my defense, I don't proclaim to be an expert on Dunk and Egg, nor have I ever like alluded that I read them. I'm on the main line, A Song of Ice and Fire stuff. All the extra spin-off stuff, I'm not really familiar with. Also, at the same
Yeah.
time, how can you blame me? I have the Encyclopedia of Ice and Fire right here with me.
What's funny? What's funny is that you're kind of a fast like the other day I was like, oh, you want to read like the latest fanfic chapter? And he's like, sure, yeah, sure. And then he just like reads it, and it's just like brrr, skimmed, done. And I'm like,
I didn't skim it.
you're kind of a fast reader. You could just do that with Dunkin' Egg. You're like, seems really good. Seems really good. Do that with Dunkin' Egg.
I need to go to my guy, our mutual friend Ness, who, by the way, shout out to Mr. Ness, who he's about to reach 1,000 subscribers. A new,
Mm.
YouTuber. A new person I pushed into doing YouTube. He's usually my guy I go to like get me some pirated stuff if I can't find it myself. So I'm gonna ask him if he can grab it for me because he's in the know.
Yeah, he's doing the comic book stuff where
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we had this conversation where like, so he's a big comic nerd, and so like I was a comic nerd, but like for a very specific period of time. So like
Hmm.
I like we were able to talk about like comics of the 80s and early 90s, but you know, he knows all like the later stuff too. So I was like, you know, the thing about like the fact that um Iron Man had a suit that was actually an alien symbiote, just like Spider-Man, and then Quasar fought him in space, and then they dropped that plot and had like the whole Planet of the Symbiotes thing. Whatever. Did they ever? You know, they should totally deal with the fact that like Iron Man had a fucking symbiote suit too. I mean, it got killed by Quasar, but like, how did that come about? No one. That's never been addressed. I mean, like, it's like really specific shit.
No, he knows
Carmine's
his
just kind
Marvel
of,
stuff.
yeah, Dark Carmine's just kind of like laughing about it. Um, Golden Kamuy is the next anime you could watch. It's ridiculous, hilarious, and super easy to watch. If you've seen One Punch Man, it's similar. Do you know what I'm talking about? Golden Kamuy?
I gave it a shot. I dropped it after one episode. I couldn't get into it. I just couldn't. I could. Basically, the plot is based around this the veteran of the Russo-Japanese War,
Mm.
and he
Oh,
is
interesting.
trying to look for a treasure map that has been painted on the backs of escaped convicts, and he has to find like all the maps on all these convicts back and like piece it together so he can find a treasure. And it's very interesting if you're into
Yeah,
that type of stuff. I just couldn't get into it.
that's very funny. Yeah, but I mean that's an interesting time period, the Russo-Japanese War. Um, I mean, in that sense, that backdrop makes me kind of want to watch it. Just because, man.
Also, for those of you who are, I should probably, Stephanie, if you're listening right now, when I recommended to you Bible Black, and you said you'll check it out, I feel bad. Don't check it out. Don't not look up what Bible Black is. Do not do that. I feel like an asshole now. Don't do that. Are you looking up too, Preston? Don't look it up on your government issue computer.
What? It's called Bible Black?
No, 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 don't do it. Don't do it. Not on your government issue computer. This motherfucker's looking it up now.
Oh, I see. It's hentai, yeah?
Basically, yes. Because she said something along the lines of, "Well, if there's an anime Carmine's recommending, I'll watch it. Then go watch Bible
But
Black."
is
Like,
it's more, is it softcore?
no, no, no. It's like satanic porn stuff. So,
So
well,
it
they
is
find the
porn.
Book of the Dead, and look, I'm not even gonna get into why I know this. Just leave it at leave it at that. Golden
Yeah,
Kamui
it
though,
happens. It happens at a high school girls' school that
it's
rumored to be
anime.
the
It's always
base
high
of
school
a
girls.
operation of a coven 12 years prior. Taki Manase, a high school student, finds a book of black magic in a storage room.
Yo, are you
Um,
reading the plot? What the
he begins
fuck are you
practicing the
doing?
black magic and has extreme sexual effects that benefits him and his friends until evil comes forth. Eventually, the origins of the books were revealed, and okay, yeah. I mean, when I Googled it, it was like everything was like blurred. So I was like, I would
Hmm.
have to like turn off my safe
Oh, you
settings.
you have the save settings on. Interesting.
I don't know why. I don't know. Okay, let's see about it. Let's see what comes. Let me see what comes up here.
Let's just move on from this topic. What are you doing?
I mean, I'm not seeing anything like too. Huh. Okay. Interesting. All right. All right. Good times. Good times.
But yeah, Golden Kamui, check it out. It does seem like it'd be up your alley. I just couldn't get into it.
um, is Arya too far gone and destined to be a psychopathic assassin? What direction do you want her to go in the fanfic? I do kind of think that Arya's too gone, or it would take a lot to bring her back. I'm not sure how to bring her back. And when I say like what I think like brought her over the edge was probably like the murder of Darian and stuff like that. Um, but like, I mean, I don't think she'll ever like live a normal life, which is why I think in the show they just sent her off on this like exploration adventure and stuff like that. But um like how do you have a resolution for someone that's been like murdering people? And especially the way she like kills Raph the Sweetling and without any remorse, enjoying it essentially. So I don't know. I think knowing where the Winds of Winter is, like in the fanfic, I think she's going to become more extreme. I mean, I think the logical way to take her character is to deal with the Bravosi politics and the death list. Like, that she has to keep going down the death list. So, like, she killed Raph the Sweetling. So, maybe next would be like Dunson. Is Dunson in Bravos? I assume he is. Just because, like, the mount, like Harry Swift, like brought the Mountain's Men. So I'm assuming he brought Dunson too. And so I think like we get to Dunson, and Dunson is like not as bad of a character as Raph the Sweetling, because Raph the Sweetling was pretty bad. But we find that Dunson is like not as bad. And then she kills him anyway. And then you kind of like go down the list, and she like discovers that each of these people that she's killing are not as bad as she thinks. Because remember, like Dunson is put on the list because he takes Gendry's helmet, right? Like, it's a lot different than Raph the Sweetling, who freaking murdered Lamy. right? Like Dunson took a helmet. Like he shouldn't be on the list. Like, but she's gonna kill him. And you sort of like go on that. It's too bad they did the order weird because because man, she already killed Darien, and Darien didn't do anything really, so it's too bad. Um, so I think she's gonna like start killing people in a more and more extreme fashion, people that have hardly done anything wrong, you know, and then eventually she's gonna reach some breaking point where she realizes she's become a monster, and then we sort of see where like what we're gonna do with her. Is she savable, or is she is she just gonna go off the deep end? And which makes a better story? And I don't know. I don't know. Werewoods are photosynthesizing human consciousness. Instead of capturing energy through red and blue light waves of the sun, they capture brain waves through electrodes like chlorophyll pigments. Interesting. Huh, interesting. I mean, it does make sense, like, the werewood is off in the middle of the tundra and like nothing else could like grow. Like, well, I mean the pine trees are out there too, right? They're kind of like, but it shouldn't be like they're not evergreen trees, and yet they're somehow growing in this like cold environment. How does it avoid the freeze? Like what's actually in a werewood's red leaf? Because it's not green, right? Like it's like green is the color of chlorophyll and photosynthesis. So like how is it surviving? Is it surviving on some other form of energy? It's surviving on brainwaves. But this idea that the brainwaves aren't being consumed though, right? So I mean they continue on forever. These brainwaves are converted through the plant's transducer reaction centers and are converted into glucose, which are stored energy, afterlife, or blended consciousness. Thoughts? Oh, man. I think that you have come up with a much better idea than George R. R. Martin ever thought of. Like, that's very creepy and cool. This is my piggybacking on my human consciousness expressed as a wave idea. It's funny though, because I was actually thinking about this like idea that you came up with, and I was thinking of a book idea in which, uh, like the first transceiver, like it's a story in which like you set it in any time, but say it's in the modern day, but there's a transceiver and it receives the first signal and it's able to construct a nanite or a robot or something that begins constructing more transceivers in order to receive more alien consciousness, because the consciousness has all been transformed into waves, into light waves, and that way you can like recreate these people. So you could do an invasion story, um in the sense that like these robots are like building more, and then more transceivers and more consciousness comes through each transceiver. Or it could be in a sense like you could have another spacefaring story where it takes place over the course of just millions of years, but like when travel happens, everybody like transitions into becoming waves, and they send themselves across space, and their bodies get reconstructed in the new environment, and the whole thing like takes place. The whole story takes place over centuries, thousands of years, millions of years. As like human beings, or the characters are like moving themselves around. But yeah, storing consciousness as like in the plant as glucose, in the same way that I think that's a very cool idea. It's very outside the box. I don't think George was thinking about it. I don't think George was thinking about it. But these are very cool ideas, because I've never seen these stories, like an idea like this, like done. You could yeah, are they slowly digesting the souls of the hive mind? I don't know. It would have to be very, very slow. Ah. I mean, that's a cool idea. Maybe it has a place in the fanfic. I don't think George was thinking about it. I think it's way too outside the box. Carmine, what do you think of this? What do you think of we're on like heavy sci-fi here.
This guy Chaos Card has consistently delivered some banger super chat questions. My one question to him is, my man, what the fuck are you doing paying Preston to see your theories? Make your own fucking channel. What are you waiting for? You're just giving these ideas out for
I know
free?
these
My
are like
man.
these are fantastic sci-fi book ideas. I'm just saying that like an invasion story where like the first robot is like building a satellite dish and is now building more satellite dishes for like more of his like brethren to come. That's never been done before. Or like a foundation like story, but rather than faster than light like ships, which is what everybody just does, like it actually just takes place with like beams of light and bodies that are reconstructed in their new environments. Um, Actually, for the invasion story, it could be like the first probe arrives. It's like one of those scattershot probes, right? You know the there's you, Carmine. You heard about the idea of how we're gonna get to like Alpha Centauri? Is that
Uh,
the idea is
it's
that
about transmitting consciousness.
no, well, no. But I'm saying like right now, people are like, okay, what's the best we can do to get to Alpha Centauri? Well, we can build tiny little probes, micro probes, and then with solar sails, and then you push the laser against it, and it picks up speed, and eventually you can get it up to a speed of like a quarter of the speed of light. Now the problem is that in space there's like tiny fragments of dust or atoms, and so over the course of a trip to Alpha Centauri, your ship is probably going to hit one and explode. So you send like 1,000 or 5,000 of them and hope that like a few make it out of
Hmm.
the whole idea. And then you build them up to a 25% of the speed of the light. They zoom by Alpha Centauri. They take pictures of everything. They send the information back, and that's like the best idea we have for like interstellar travel, for like at least exploring like the nearest like 10 stars. You know that we could explore them within say the next 200 years. Like find out what they look like and if there's like habitable worlds and things like that. Um, and
Dario
so,
makes a good point here, and
yeah,
this is ironically this is a quest in Starfield. The trouble with slow travel, the trouble with this type of travel is someone after you could invent faster travel and get there before you, making the trip a complete waste. True,
right.
over
I think
time
this is
as they get
why
there.
everyone keeps waiting. You know, like, well, the
Mm.
technology is moving fast enough that we might as well wait and then see. You know, because like we think about like chips getting smaller and things like this. It's like even for that like for the 10,000 ships to Alpha Centauri, like just waiting 1 year, like how much technology change happens in 1 year with regards to like data storage, you know. You might as well, you know, and then it just gets to that point, and then we're always waiting. But um are the Tyrells a secret matriarchy? I don't know. I mean, people talk about like whether Olena Tyrell is like really the one in power, or that they try to portray that in the show because they got Diana Riggs and she was a bigger star than the person playing Mace. Um, I think in the books we don't really have that relationship with the Tyrells, and that Olena being a red wine was really just like had possibly one scheming little thing. But we don't really get that impression otherwise. You know, we get this idea that Mace is in charge and that Willis is well prepared to take over. So I don't know. I don't know if we really get there. I don't know if we have any secret matriarchies other than like the Mormons might be the only ones. Voyager 1 has been out there since 1977, hasn't hit a single thing yet. Right, but we're talking like when you're up to a speed, like approaching the speed of light, you get to the point where like you just hit one tiny little thing, and like the amount of like momentum is enough to like destroy it. I mean, I think, have you seen like there are videos of like what would happen to Earth if a grain of sand going 99% the speed of light like hits Earth? Like the whole Earth is destroyed, you know, and it's like one grain of sand. So I think it's something like that. That if it weren't the fact that it's going at such a high speed that it would just obliterate itself by just hitting even like a single atom of something. So yeah. Don't apply modern values to George R. Martin. He uses literally historical fiction as a basis for his subject matter. I disagree. I mean, the entire point of his stories is to make a statement about the modern world. Now it's true that like when I've seen him in interviews, like, and they've asked him stuff about like, oh, are you concerned about the amount of like abusive women in the story? And he's like, well, you got to remember that like in the Middle Ages, like women were abused like quite a bit. So like that's just, accurate, right? And that's kind of his response. But like the function of the story is to make comments about today's society. Like that's completely there. There's no point in telling the story otherwise. Like why would you look at any story? Like the whole point of any story is to understand the human heart and conflict George would talk about. But the whole point is that we're supposed to relate to like what these people think and how they feel, because it affects us in modern day, right? So we take like, the story of Cain and Abel. Like Cain kills his brother. Okay. Today we all know about like still like brotherly love. Like we understand sibling love and like how insanely like evil and horrible that would be to kill your brother. Like you're supposed to think about those things. When you read Job and Job is like questioning God, like it's supposed to be a modern reader is supposed to like read the story and question God and like and the situation of questioning God and be told like how are we supposed to react in that situation when we deal with hardships like Job did. What are we supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to just keep being faithful. Like when you say like don't apply to modern values, like the story loses function. Like what the hell are we doing now? Like what's the point? Like if the story has no application to the modern day, like what is the point of it? That's what plus the fact that, Ice and Fire is very, very loosely historical. I mean, it is in a fantasy world. Just good story is enough. But what the thing is, you can't be like just good story. Like good story is not just something like in and of itself. Something makes it a good story, right? Like something that like affects people on an emotional level some way that like makes it great. Like I don't know if I have any like I can't think of a story that would not have like emotional weight to somebody. Like if you're watching even Friday the 13th, like it gets into the human fear of being like murdered, right? Like, like you're getting something out of it. So there's some relation to like why, like even when you're taking something like say you're taking a situation like Tyrek Lannister marrying a baby. Okay? That's in there to sort of shock people. Like, oh my God, they're such a screwed up society that they would have him marry a baby. and we're supposed to, and we read it and we go, oh yeah, that's shocking, because in our society, we're not supposed to marry babies. So in a sense, you are like relating it to your own life, you know. Um, when you watch Friday the 13th and like Jason is going off and like killing people in the woods, and you're scared because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a comfortable environment where I'm not alone and I'm not lost in the woods. And if I were, that would be a scary situation. Like everything relates back to yourself and in your modern context. So like it has to be compared to modern society, because what else is there? You can't just be like moral relativist on everything. Because it also establishes, if you're gonna say that it's historical and that it was okay at the time, therefore it's okay. Like say you look up your ancestor. This happens a lot. Okay. You look up an ancestor and you find out, oh, your ancestor was, they got married at like 14 and 12. I'm sure we all have ancestors that did this, right? Oh man, that's child marriage. Now, someone might say, well, at the time it was perfectly fine for a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old to like get married. You're like, well, does that make it okay? Like, if all of society agrees that something's okay, does that make that okay? Are we supposed to read Frederick Douglass and think, well, slavery was legal, so like, or Harriet Jacobs and be like, slavery was legal, so I guess it was okay that they were abused because they were slaves? Like, are we supposed to look at something historical, look at the norms at the time and be like, and give it a pass? No, you're supposed to like, so, anyway, he's like, I was playing devil's advocate. Okay, I understand. I know, but like a lot of people do make that argument a lot. So, but George R. R. Martin did start this series 30 years ago. Yeah, and in that sense, he does some weird conflation of gender and sex that that probably an author today would not do. George R. R. Martin just wants us to read about child marriages and cringe. Yeah, but I mean, he does want to like us to think about modern society. I mean, Marine, right? We're supposed to look at Marine and think about conflicts. Oh, so Carmine, anything else that you're itching to talk about today before I sign off?
Are you pressed to get off, or
No,
you got
not
time
pressing.
for
I'm just
one
I'm
topic?
winding it up though. Why?
Gotcha. So I didn't realize, because I am blocked by this person, but do you mind if I bring up the fact that I was blocked
Yeah.
by Gina Carano? So
This is so
she's
funny.
she's become unhinged. Based, she has more to she had more to say. I didn't realize that. So to catch the audience up to date, someone retweeted something Gina Carano said, because the South Park episode of the Panderverse thing
Mm.
completely went over her head, and she's accusing Kathleen Kennedy of going on YouTube and censoring people, when in reality, some companies actually copyright claim you or copyright strike you, and some companies don't. HBO is historically relaxed on that thing, unless you're uploading full episodes of Game of Thrones, but Nintendo, they're absolute demons when it comes to copyright. They will
Yeah,
come
yeah.
after you, your mother, like everybody. So, and yeah, no, Gina Carano is just going crazy because she's butthurt that she got fired for comparing far right people with Jews being killed in the Holocaust. That was essentially her thing. And I didn't realize this, but she blocked me on Twitter for some reason. I want to assume that she didn't personally go to my account and blocked me.
Yeah.
Maybe she subscribed to some like MAGA list of people you have to block. But I will wear that with a badge of honor. That is,
Yeah, Gina Carano is yeah, she was an MMA fighter, and then you might know her from being in Deadpool, and you might know her from being in Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, and then
mhm.
she started posting some crazy like conspiracy theories on Twitter, and Disney was like, "Yeah, I think we're done with you. It's okay." and so Carmine like checked out her Twitter page the other day, and he was personally blocked by her. And I was like, I mean, keep in mind that like Carmen and my Twitter on presence on Twitter is not huge. Like each of us have like 8,000 followers. She has
Something like
1.2
that.
million. She has 1.2 million followers. Okay. We so somehow you came up in her feed some point. She didn't like you and then she blocked you.
I'm assuming she blocked me because, for those of you who aren't following me on Twitter, I have this one post that went viral, and it's basically a scene from the Panderverse South Park
Mm.
episode, in which I say, I'm quoting it, leave it to South Park to not only dunk on Disney for virtual signaling, which they do, but also grifter weirdos who made hating Kathleen Kennedy their entire personality. I also love how those same people are too dumb to realize they're also being made fun of. Goddamn, what a great episode. And it's true. Some of these fucking idiots are
Is
way
it the
too
episode
stupid.
where they're all there's an alternate universe where they're all minorities?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually a very funny episode, and it is great. And by the way, the funny thing about that post that I made, if you go on it and like read some of the comments, you have people so upset that I'm making fun of their favorite grifter YouTubers. You just are just so upset. They're like the perfect pick-me's. Perfect. No, Nerdrotic really understood that he was being made like no. Sure he did. Sure. Okay. Sure he did.
Yeah. No, they'll never stop. They'll never stop.
Well, it's a circle, right? Like
Yeah.
woke content needs to be made for them to have money. In order for
Yeah.
them to have money, they have to bitch about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in my YouTube feed, like Critical Drinker like came up in my YouTube feed, and he has another fucking Brie Larson video, and you're like, oh my
Another?
god, really? Like, oh my god, Disney's panicking. Brie Larson, like, oh.
Oh wait. No, there's actually a reason why um he would talk about her, and unfortunately, so I think
Mm,
Kevin Feige's new book, or someone's new book came out about like the inner workings going on at Marvel, and Brie Larson apparently does not want to do any of the stuff anymore because and she cited some of the backlash she's received online as the
mm.
reason. And I kind of hate how these grifters consistently bitching about this woman is causing her to like not do it. I kind of want her to do it more now just to
Oh
be
yeah,
petty.
yeah. Yeah,
Like
I think
fuck
this.
these
I think the
people.
video was about. So Disney has like because of the whole summer blockbusters like all crashed, except for Barbie. They downgraded their like profit expectations for the Marvels like 50 or
Hmm.
60%, which is like in line with all of the movies drops. But I think it's like a video on like, you know, of course, everything's collapsing, panic, because they tried to pander with women, you know. And I'm sure it's
Well,
like
to
that.
to be fair, I'll be very fair here. Who really asked for this? Because Monica Rambeau wasn't like a standout character in WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Marvel, the TV show, even you watched it and you were like, whatever. And Captain Marvel, the movie, was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Who was clamoring for this? Like who really wanted this whole thing? Justin Channels here at Red Team Review. I was literally listening today to Nerd Rock, and he said that the show made fun of him, his viewpoints. He actually absolutely did. Sorry to completely. No. You're then I'm wrong. I'll take that. I'll take that on the chin. I'm wrong because when I checked some of the other grifter ones, they weren't aware of that. So if Nerdrotic was completely self-aware on that, good on him. Respect to him on to him for that. But um, what is that?
This is it. Like you're like, who
What is
asked for this? Hmm?
who asked for My
Hmm.
Little Pony? What is that?
My Little Pony. My Little
No, I'm
Pony.
talking about the.
My Little Pony van. That little ponies can go in. You know.
Okay.
Okay. That's
Uh huh.
that's that's the audience. You're like, who asked for this? It's a movie for little girls.
Oh, I guess yeah.
Ms.
Yeah.
Marvel. It's the Marvels is a movie for little girls. Like for
What's the
having
over
full grown
under on
men
a
in
little?
their 40s and 50s
No, that's a
like
good point. That's
complaining
a good
about a
point.
movie for little girls and
That's a good
marketing
point.
shit to little girls. Like that's what it is. Like who asked for this? Little girls. Little girls
Yeah,
wanted to
that's a good
buy
point.
shit. like who asked for this? Little girls.
Well,
Little
like
girls
I
asked for
said,
this.
is this something like what's the demographic of people actually watching Captain Marvel and like Monica Rambeau? Miss Marvel, I understand with Captain Marvel, but I like to see the demographics on that. And to
Well,
be
I mean,
fair, who asked for Ant-Man and Quantumania?
that's a better question. I mean, people like Paul Rudd. He was doing okay for a while, you know, um, and they're they, they thought it was okay until it wasn't. People got a little sick of Paul Rudd and the fact that it was just a crappy movie.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's weird. It's weird because like these grifters on the one hand they'll be like, well, the only reason Barbie made money is because women have been deprived of like things to consume. And then when like another movie comes out, they're like, oh no, that's it's not gonna. Who asked for that? Well, you just fucking showed Barbie. Like you just fucking showed Barbie. You know. And it's like Barbie succeeds and they accept that like women watch stuff, but like, oh, the only reason Captain Marvel did well was because it was between the two Avengers movies. Like, really? That's the only people like just went out and shelled out $30 or whatever
Well,
for.
let me rephrase that. When I say
Mm,
who asked for this, Marvel fans are very loud about what they want. For years, they wanted She-Hulk, and they got it. For years, they wanted Deadpool, and they got it. For years, they wanted X-Men, and they got it. I feel like certain heroes, like Ant-Man and like Miss Marvel and
mm,
Captain Marvel, I feel like they work better alongside other heroes, like in the Avengers films.
mm.
Like who the fuck asked for a fourth Thor film? Like I think the trilogy of Thor should have been over. Like no one's asking for a fifth Thor film, but we're getting it anyways. Like who's asking for all these heroes who probably shouldn't have their own movie? Because we all know Marvel
Yeah.
spends a lot on the films. So they're probably not going to get a
Hmm.
big return on that. They should really stick to having these characters be like one giant team on maybe some television shows.
Do you have like an aunt or someone in your family who like when they cook and you get your plate of food and you feel you want to be polite. So in a polite sense, you finish the food in front of you because someone cooked for you. Because you finished the food in front of you, they assume that you're still hungry and then they plop another portion of food in front of you. You're actually full. You're perfectly fine. But now they've plopped another piece of food in front of you. So you're like, ah, fuck. And so you politely then begin to gorge yourself until you're overly full because
Mm.
they've put this second portion in front of you and you finish it up. And now you finish that second portion. They assume you're still hungry. So they plop a third portion in front of you. Okay? Has this happened to you?
Yes.
Okay? This is the exact same fucking thing with movies. Okay? You go to see a movie, except, I mean, it's less nice. It's when your aunt does it. But like, they're like, oh crap, you went to see that movie. We can make more money by plopping another portion in front of you. And it's going to keep going until you leave that portion sitting there wasted, cold, Um, that's just what's going to happen.
Mm.
So that's all that's happening. You said like who asked for the fourth Thor movie? All the people that went to Ragnarok and made it a hit asked for the Thor 4. That's how
Yeah.
it works. When you finish your portion, that's signaling give me more, even though it's not. Right?
No, yeah, yeah.
So that's it. Um but man oh man.
To be fair on this, I think we're starting to get to a point where, as a lot of these Disney movies are failing to really double their their budget, we're getting to that point where we're going to see that not a lot of people are asking for it, and that will be seen in the box office because a lot of the Disney stuff this past year did not do well.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So
you see
we'll
Quantum Mania that came out this year.
yeah, I watched it when it came out on Disney Plus. It was really bad. That was a really bad movie.
Barely made its budget back. Barely. For $200 million budget, it made 476 million. Barely made it back.
Oh, that's better than I thought it did. The glucose idea was a way to connect Robert Aaron's seizures with his werewood throne from your theory videos. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I always the seizure idea was this idea that there's still like children in the werewood, and that they're like connecting with Robert Aaron and having seizures, in the same way that like Varamir Sixskins tries to like take control of somebody's body in his chapter, and she has a seizure. That he's he tries to seize her body and she has a seizure. That people are trying to seize Robert Aaron's body and being unsuccessful. But do you have Riz? Now I looked up Riz. That just means like charisma.
Yes.
I guess I guess I think I have some Riz. I think I can be. I think I can be occasionally charming. Occasionally. But I can also be the opposite, so I can also ruin it. Saw movies still been made after so many goddamn cold plates. Yes, same with Highlander movies or something, where it's just like that one bombed, the next one bombs, the next one bombs.
Wait.
Stop. Reboot it.
Did you know they're making a new one? They're making a new Highlander film. It's a reboot, a whole film series with Henry Cavill as the main guy.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Man, I hope that the planet, the spacefaring planet, Zeist, what was it called?
I've actually never seen the Highlander films.
Really?
Should I get on that?
You should watch the first one. But
yeah, of course. I'm assuming just watch the first one and that's it.
Okay. Highlander, the first one is an incredible movie. It's an incredible movie. It's really good. Highlander 2, it's kind of it's a horrible movie, but it's at least entertaining. And so it's not like you're going to watch it and you're going to be like, this is ridiculous, but at least it's entertaining and you can get through it. In fact, the director's cut for it is quite entertaining, though I would never say good. But man, it's
who's the main lead in that? That's not Sean Connery, is it? I'm thinking of someone else.
No, his name's in English is Christopher Lambert.
I love him. I love him in Mortal Kombat.
In French, people know him as Castoff. I can't pronounce his last name, but they know him differently in because Christopher Lambert was kind of like a B actor in America, but he was actually a fairly big actor in France. But it's probably like his breakthrough role, right? And so it's a really fucking Highlander is a really fucking good movie. I don't know why, and there was a series for a number of years starring Adrian Paul, but like the premise of it is that there's all these immortals that are born and they feel compelled to behead each other until there's only one left. And
does he behead himself if he's the last guy left? No, right?
Well, there's a little bit to it. Like, what's the final prize? And they're a little abstract on it, but they're like, the final prize is, well, one, all the Highlanders, all the immortals are sterile. So if you become the last one, you can have children, and you become kind of connected to all beings on the planet, and you have like a feeling of oneness to like the earth or something. Like that's kind of like it. All right. So that's the prize in the end. So the first movie is a contained movie. And the mantra that all of the Highlanders say before they battle is, in the end, there can be only one. And then they battle. And and they're just all compelled to do this. Like they kind of all know that there's going to be something called the Gathering, where they like, where they're going to have a final battle and do it. So you'd think like after that you can't have a sequel, but they found ways to have sequels. And so the sequel, I was going to ruin it for you because you're not going to believe.
No,
You're not even going to fucking believe
right
like how they do Highlander 2. Like
I'm
describing
downloading it right now.
Describing it is like so amazing that like in fact they're alien exiles who have been reborn in different bodies, and
It makes no sense to me. That makes literally no sense to me. I'll probably just skip the sequel because that sounds stupid already.
It's, oh my god, it's so bad. It's so bad. And yeah, and then they keep redoing it. Like, okay, never mind, that one didn't happen. This is the real sequel.
Like some of the Jason films or the Halloween films, because the Halloween films love to do that too.
Yeah, it's just like that. So I don't think there's ever any of them go on to having like a third, like there's no third part to any of the Highlander sequels, even though there's been a bunch of sequels. So Highlander 3 is Highlander the Final Dimension. Then there's like the Highlander series, Highlander the Source. They're all really bad. The series was okay, but like it's amazing. It's amazing that they all come from the planet Zeist. Like, and they when political prisoners are like forced to be reborn on another planet so that they can. And then you're just like, but why would you let the political prisoners come back? Like, why would you even establish like a fighting contest so that they can come back and threaten your rule? Like, it's not, that doesn't make any sense. It's horrible. You have to watch Highlander though.
I'm downloading it right now.
Yeah.
But no, I am. I'm literally downloading it right now.
You know, it's funny about these like things about like movie series that abort sequels and then redo them. I, for some reason, am really obsessed with trying to make them fit in my mind, even though there's no way to make them fit. You know, like the Halloween story, which has been rebooted a million times. Like, right. Is it possible to somehow have those plot lines somehow fit if you take the stories out of order? And it's like, no, there's not. But like, for some reason, like, I'm just like, but is there a way to somehow have them all be there? Because like, I feel like having them be wasted is something like wrong. There's something wrong to having them wasted and existing without. The same with like the Friday the 13th movies. Like, I don't know how many Friday the 13th movies you saw, but I've tried to like understand the lore where I'm like, well, Jason jumps out of the lake in the first one and his mom jumps out of the lake in the third one. And then the girl's dad jumps out of the lake in the seventh one. So maybe there's like some special powers on the bottom of Camp Crystal Lake that gives people like powers, but they never follow that up. Instead, they make Jason into a worm, a body hopping worm. But yeah, maybe I should make a Flash movie where they like all of the different. Oh my god, there's a fucking movie idea right there. They do a multiverse where they pull all of the Jasons from the different movies and they all fight side by side against the villains and against the heroes. And the heroes have to kill off like each Jason. And or like each Michael Myers from the different universes.
I thought you were gonna go like all the Jasons from all the different movies come together and they battle each other because there can be only one.
Oh, that would be. Oh, that is the plot of the one. Did you ever see the one, Jackie Chan? Not Jackie Chan.
Jet Li.
Mm-hmm. Not a bad
Isn't
movie.
that movie? That movie ends so badass. Like he's fighting on top of the pyramid, and oh,
Mhm.
dude,
It's
so
funny because they
good.
used that scene in the previews because it was such an awesome scene, and it has nothing to do with really the plot of the movie.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah. Oh. It all makes sense in Freddy versus Jason. I mean, oh, this is kind of a joke, but like they try to reconcile some of it because, like, how does Jason go from hell back to Earth? So, like, Freddy versus Jason does find Jason in hell which is where he is at the end of Friday the 13th Part 9, and then puts him back. So that movie does set up Jason X. So the like Freddy versus Jason does kind of fit closing between like uh 9 and 10, but it doesn't really explain, like, there's a hole between 8 and 9 on how Jason goes from being a sewer boy to becoming a worm. That's not really explained. And it's never explained, like, what happens to the lake. Like, is Jason's mom alive, and is the girl's dad still alive from Friday the 13th 3 and 7? If someone could explain that to me, I have no idea. Or is, like, the dad just alive because of telekinesis powers, and we're just gonna forget about the fact that Jason's mom came back in part 3? But whatever.
Throughout the entire time you were explaining that, I was watching the ending scene of the one. God damn, I love early 2000s films and how campy they are, but so fucking cool.
This is good.
Ah,
Jet Li is a great fighter. Fucking great. Jet Li movies are so entertaining because he's so fucking good.
so this movie's soundtrack was like my whole fucking childhood. Disturbed, Drowning Pool, Godsmack, Linkin Park, Papa Roach. Oh, God, I miss the early 2000s. Fuck, what a great time to be a kid. Before the internet ruined everything.
All right, man. Sounds good. Thank you all of you for staying up late. It's like 1:30 for a lot of you, and so I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you, Carmine, for being with me. All right, bye.
Thank you.